provide additional financing for sustainable development goals. The outcome document also stresses upon the need to have reliable food and fertilizer supply chains, as well as resilient and sustainable energy supply chains. In the context of global food and energy insecurity, this, we believe, is a very important message. I would also like to highlight that the foreign ministers unequivocally condemn terrorism in all forms and manifestations and recognize that all acts of terrorism are criminal and unjustifiable. They call for strengthening of efforts to deny safe havens to terrorist groups, freedom of operations, movement and recruitment, as well as financial, material or political support. The G20 also reflected upon the threats arising from the misuse of new and emerging technologies and highlighted the importance of strengthening international cooperation in that regard. For the first time, the G20 foreign ministers considered and discussed the topic of counter-narcotics and called for inclusive and strong international cooperation in this regard. They also discussed the topic of global skills mapping, and this was in the context of the changing nature of work. They recognized that well-integrated, skilled workers benefit not only in their country of origin, but also the destination country where they may happen to be employed. The G20 also accepted the need to strengthen international cooperation in the field of humanitarian assistance and disaster risk reduction. This will be further discussed in the working group on this particular subject, which has been newly set up by the Indian Presidency. Now, as you all know, women-led development is one of the key priorities of the Indian Presidency, and it has been personally highlighted by the Prime Minister. After due deliberations on the G20 table, the foreign ministers affirmed the need to put gender equality and empowerment of women and girls, including their leadership, at the core of our efforts for inclusive recovery. Important discussions on global health were also held. The statement, the outcome document I'm talking about, highlights the need for strengthening key aspects of global health architecture, support for the pandemic fund, and continued political attention to global health. It stresses the need for implementing the One Health approach. The foreign ministers addressed climate action in the context of common but differentiated responsibilities and urged developed countries to fulfill their commitments to deliver on the goal of jointly mobilizing $100 billion per year urgently and through to 2025 to tackle climate change. Now, despite the challenges of the divergent positions on the conflict in Ukraine, the G20 foreign ministers were able to come to a consensus on addressing these key challenges that I have just mentioned. As the Prime Minister urged, we did indeed focus more on what unites us than what divides us. You would also see that it has been our endeavor to ensure that the voice of the Global South is heard on the G20 table. And that is why India had organized the Voice of the Global South Summit in January this year, in which I think 125 countries participated. So the agenda for the foreign ministers meeting, as well as the outcome document, has very clearly taken forward the priorities of the Global South. We are also particularly glad that to see so many of our friends and partners from the Global South on the table, because India, as President, had invited them. I would also like to point out that today's sessions commenced with a moment of silence to pay respect to those who lost their lives in the recent earthquakes in Turkey and Syria. Ahead of our deliberations in today's first session, as I told you, the Prime Minister gave his virtual address to the foreign ministers. I would like to take this opportunity to express my appreciation to all G20 members, to all the participating delegations, obviously to our own team working on it, for the support which they have given to the priorities of the Presidency, for the efficient holding of today's meeting. We believe that the outcome document is truly a reflection of G20's commitment to face global challenges squarely and collectively. The G20 foreign ministers, along with the ministers from the guest countries and heads of delegations from international organizations, will be calling upon the Prime Minister very shortly, in fact, immediately after this press conference. So this really, in summary, is a sense of what was discussed today, what was negotiated amongst the G20 members, and the chair's summary and outcome document will, of course, be released in due course. So I think, Arindam, that should pave the way for questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir, for a detailed and comprehensive perspective, sir. Some ground rules before I open the floor for questions. Please introduce yourself and the organization that you represent. Please note, we will try to limit questions to one per organization outlet. We will also be grouping questions. And finally, we have a very hard cut on time, as Honorable Minister mentioned. He has to go somewhere, so please don't be disappointed. Let me start with a few hands here. 1 second. I saw the hand up there first. Sudhi, why don't you start?
Sir, Shruti Ranjan from Bloomberg. So if you could give us an understanding as to why the foreign ministers could not come to a consensus. We know India was trying very hard to convince everybody, in fact China and Russia, to kind of agree on this. Where did the hurdle come up? If you could give us an understanding. Thank you.
Okay. Ma'am, here on the right.
Thank you. Barbara Platt-Usher from the BBC. The Russians issued a statement after a meeting between China and Russia on the sidelines of the event, in which they criticized the West for employing blackmail and threats and interfering in the internal affairs of other countries. And I was wondering whether that had any impact on your efforts to come to a joint communique. Or I know you've highlighted that you were able to deal with the issues you wanted to find consensus on, but to what degree did that affect the discussions? And to just clarify that a chair summary is not a joint communique, and whether you felt that you fell short of your expectations in terms of what you might have been able to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you. Right here. Yes.
Sir, Rishikesh from PTI. My question is the Russia-Ukraine conflict potentially derailing aspirations of global South under India's presidency, sir? And especially India's concerns about Indo-Pacific region, Chinese aggression
Sorry,
in the Indo-Pacific region.
could you clarify your question? Sorry.
My question is,
You got it. Okay, fair enough. Siddhant, go ahead.
Sir, Siddhant from WION. Sir, do you think that Siddhant from WION, my question is, do you think the Russia-Ukraine conflict is potentially paralyzing the grouping because of the divide between Russia and the West? And my second question, what was your meeting with the Chinese foreign minister?
The first question has already been asked. I'll take that as the second one. Sir, to you.
Okay. In a sense, the first three questions cover a very similar area, so I'm really clubbing it together. I'll ignore your first question because you're allowed only one. So I'll take the China question. What I tried to, the picture which I was sharing with you was the G20 delegations, the members, the negotiators, the ministers. We met, we discussed, the officials also obviously negotiated. Now, there were a very large number of issues on which there was agreement. And in fact, if you look at, the detailed picture that I have presented to you, there was agreement on various aspects of strengthening multilateralism, on promoting food and energy security, on climate change, climate action, ensuring biodiversity, on gender issues, on global health. on counter-terrorism, on new emerging technologies, counter-narcotics, how do we go about with development cooperation. So there are, I would say, I don't want to put a percentage on it because that's not a fair way of depicting, a collection of issues. But do appreciate that on the bulk of the issues which concern especially the global south, the developing countries, there was a considerable meeting of minds, and a considerable meeting of minds which has been captured by the outcome document. Now, the question, why was, did we fall short of expectations? Why is it called what it is? If we had had a perfect meeting of minds on all issues and captured it fully, then obviously it would have been a collective statement. But there were issues, and I think the issues, I would say, very frankly, concerned the Ukraine conflict, on which there were divergences. So on the bulk of the issues, we were able to get an outcome document. There was a chair summary because there were differences on the Ukraine issue, which we could not reconcile between various parties who held differing positions. Now, is the conflict impacting the global south? Of course it is. I mean, it's not something new. In fact, India has been saying this very strongly for pretty much close to a year, that this is affecting. In fact, today in my own session, I actually used the word saying for much of the global south, this is a make or break issue. That the costs of fuel, the cost of food, the cost of fertilizer, the availability of fertilizer, which means next year's food, these are all extremely pressing issues. And if you see some of the countries who were already struggling with debt, who were already impacted by the pandemic, for them, this conflict, the knock-on effects of this conflict coming on top of that has been really, damaging is a very, very mild word. So it is a matter of very, very deep concern for us, which is why we have kept the focus in this meeting very much on the concerns of the global south. We feel these are the most vulnerable countries. It's not realistic. It's not credible to talk about the future of the global economy and the multilateral order if we are not able to really address and focus on the issues of those who are most in need. So that's been broadly the approach. So just to sum up, I would say in terms of the outcome document, which we will be putting out very, very shortly, you will see that, the bulk, there is almost, I would say, 95% in terms of paragraph agreement. And it is just on 2 paragraphs that we were not able to get everybody on the same page or same para, as you might call it. On the China meeting, I met Minister Chingang on the sidelines of the conference this afternoon. It's our first meeting after he took over as foreign minister. So we spent, I don't know, maybe about 45 minutes talking to each other. And the bulk of our conversation, understandably, was about the current state of our relationship, which many of you have heard me describe as abnormal. And I think those were among the adjectives that I used in that meeting. We have, there are real problems in that relationship that need to be looked at, that need to be discussed very openly and candidly between us. That's what we sought to do today. We also had a brief discussion on what was happening in the G20 framework, but the thrust of the meeting was really on our bilateral relationship and the challenges in the bilateral relationship, especially that of peace and tranquility in the border areas.
Sorry, let me take another round of questions, if you have, sir.
Yeah, one more round.
Okay. There, yes, please. No, there, please.
Dr. Jaishankar, Mujib Mashal from the New York Times. although the statement may have fallen short, as you said, because of divergent opinions, in the context of the role that India could play to bring the sides together on the Ukraine war, there are reports that Secretary Blinken and Sergei Lavrov may have met on the sidelines of G20. Are these the kind of positive efforts that did happen, and India facilitate conversations like that to bridge the gap? Would you confirm that?
One second. Akhilesh, go ahead. Akhilesh, yeah, microphone.
Sir, I'm Akhilesh Sowan from Sansad TV. You told about global skill mapping and related issue. What do you mean by that, and how it was discussed, and what is the outcome on this?
I had one question there. Sorry, yeah, please, yeah. Yes, sir. No, not you, behind you.
Good afternoon. I'm Emerson Lim from Central News Agency of Taiwan. As most countries are focusing on Russia-Ukraine conflict, Taiwan Strait is also another flash point in this region. So, is the Taiwan Strait issue discussed during the meeting, and is the G20 ministers, or at least the Quad ministers, taking steps to prevent the tensions from escalating? Thank you.
Thank you.
One more.
Neeraj, last one.
सर, नीरज हूं न्यूज 18 इंडिया से। हमारा सवाल यह है कि अभी 2 बैठकें हुई, G20 वित्त मंत्रियों की और विदेश मंत्रियों की बैठक में कोई ज्वाइंट स्टेटमेंट नहीं आ पाया। बाली घोषणा पत्र में भारत की भूमिका अहम थी, प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी के शब्दों को इस्तेमाल किया गया और भारत की कोशिश से वो हो सका था कि बाली डिक्लेरेशन जारी हो सका। अब आने वाले महीनों में क्या कोशिश होगी कि समिट में एक ज्वाइंट डिक्लेरेशन आ सके, सभी लोगों के बीच यूक्रेन मसले पर सहमति बन सके?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. Look, I wouldn't put it the way you put it, that the statement fell short. I mean, there are in diplomacy occasions when you are able to get 20 countries to agree on everything. There are occasions when you don't. So, for me, the primary objective of this meeting and of our presidency was really to highlight what were the key problems facing the global economy, especially the problems faced by the more vulnerable economies of the world. Now, if you, as I said, and when you look at the outcome document, you will see this for yourself. The bulk of the issues which are concerning developing countries, I think they were very satisfactorily addressed. I mean, it's not like we can give instantaneous solutions, but I think the thinking, the policy prescriptions, the commitments, the mindset were all absolutely on the right direction. So, yes, on one particular issue, because of very polarized views of some countries, we were not able to bridge it on this particular occasion. Whereas, as our colleague pointed out from there, we were able to do that with, a number of us were able to do that collectively in Bali. But obviously, the Bali situation today, for whatever reason, some countries feel cannot be extrapolated. So I would urge you really to look on the fact that substantively on the key development issues of debt, issues of finance, issues of food, issues of fuel, issues of health, issues of climate. In fact, this meeting was able to get everybody around the table. And as I said, this is no easy task given the state of polarization in the world. On your question about global skills mapping, essentially today there is a growing demand in the developed world for skills and talents. There is a growing availability, but they are not necessarily in the developed world. Much of that availability is in the developing world. So how do you match the demand and supply for the benefit of the global economy? That is the really crucial issue. For a country like India, which has significant human resources, and which fortunately now has a government which pays attention to the development of those human resources, which actually focuses on skills and talent and innovation and education. This is an opportunity for us. So especially in the last 9 years, we have also been looking at what are called mobility and migration partnership, which allow for legal mobility, which ensure that talent and skills which go out get the same treatment in those particular geographies as their own citizens, and which ensure that all of this is legal and free of any sort of illegal activities. Now, it's not just India. I'm citing India because we are among the countries where, very active in this. But there are other countries as well. So this is widely recognized. In fact, in today's intervention, I'm not, I think the etiquette is that you don't specifically say what, individual ministers said. But I can tell you that some of the relevant international organizations and some of the other ministers there spoke at some length about the importance of how do you ensure, smooth mobility, how do you ensure protected mobility, legal mobility, because this is today one of the big issues before the international economy. On the Taiwan Straits issue, I think the answer is very simple. No, the matter was not discussed today. जो आपका जो सवाल है कि बाली में हम लोग जो हैं उस समय माने हमारे कारण ही नहीं, हम सब मिलके, हमारा योगदान तो था जरूर उसमें कि हम लोग उस समय वहाँ सहमति बना पाए. अब क्या हुआ है कि बाली के बाद अभी जो है दुनिया में काफ़ी कुछ घटनाएं हुई हैं. अब जो G20 के सदस्य जो हैं, जो इस मुद्दे के साथ जो जुड़े हुए हैं, उनके इस मामले में अलग अलग विचार हैं. और हम जो हैं इस बार उनके विचार माने उनके बीच में इतना गैप था कि हम लोगों ने प्रयास तो की, पर प्रयास के बावजूद हम जो है इस समय सहमति बना नहीं पाए. तो आप देखेंगे कि जैसे हमने बेंगलोर में किया था वैसे ही जो बाली में जो तय हुआ है उसी को हमने दोहराया है. और हमारी जो सोच है कि G20 के ज़्यादा सदस्य जो हैं वो अभी भी बाली के जो आउटकम जो था उसके साथ वो जुड़े हुए हैं. सो एसेंशियली ही आस्क्ड मी सेइंग he asked me saying that why were you not able to carry forward what happened in Bali, and I explained that given the state of polarization, given presumably developments which have happened since then, we found that positions were very far apart, and we tried very hard. We were not the only country who tried. The G20 works very, very collectively, but we were not able to bridge the gap. But I want to conclude by highlighting one very important point. In the past, for quite a few years now, G20 foreign ministers have met. This is the first time that the G20 foreign ministers have produced an outcome document. The outcome document, I think, reflects consensus and cooperation and collaboration on a very vast number of issues that are particularly important today for the international community, for the global south. So very frankly, I think it's a good day's work that we have done, and I'm very happy to share it with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you also, Foreign Secretary, sir, and Su Sherpa Abhay. Thank you all for joining us today. Good evening.
Okay, that was Dr. S. Jaishankar taking a small group of questions centered around the possibility of a joint consensus at the G20, which remains elusive right now, and also throwing light on that all-important bilateral meeting between himself and his Chinese counterpart that's just taken place a short while ago. The big focus in that meeting between the Indian and Chinese foreign ministers was, of course, on the border issue, peace and tranquility issues, the first bilateral since the Ladakh standoff began over 3 years ago. So the India-China standoff was the topic of discussion. Dr. S. Jaishankar has also said that the Ukraine issue has become a very, very polarizing issue, and it has hampered the possibility of consensus at the G20. He didn't say it, of course, in so many words, but that was the sense that the Indian External Affairs Minister was giving at this point of time. So the G20 moving into top gear. This evening we will see more statements coming out. That suspense remains over what kind of consensus, if any, will have been involved in the G20. Remember, today is only day one, tomorrow is day two. India stands as not only as the host of the G20, but in many ways is being seen as a potential calming influence for what is essentially a very, very broken and stricken and damaged world. You've got the two big the big ticket spectacle, moments from today's G20 meetings. You've got there Dr. S. Jaishankar meeting with Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia, and Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State of the United States. Two countries that have been embroiled in a increasingly aggressive Cold War that's come to a flashpoint now in the battlefield of Ukraine. I want to go across to India today's Gaurav Sawant, who joins me live now. Gaurav, you heard what Dr. S. Jaishankar was saying just now. What stood out for you from what he was saying, Gaurav? That consensus, a joint communique at the G20, is that likely? Is work being done towards it? What's the sense that you got from the External Affairs Minister?
So the situation remains extremely grim, considering the fact that there are countries that are moving back from the position that they had reached, the consensus that reached in Bali, and that was where India had played a key role in arriving at that consensus that this is not an era of war. But countries like perhaps, as was the case in the finance ministers' meet, China and Russia moving back even from that position when it comes to the Ukraine-Russia conflict. India trying its best to ensure that all issues are given equal treatment, especially the issues that are raised by the global south or developing countries. India has been pushing for the sustainable development goals to be considered, reliability of supply chains, energy security, food security, security of movement, all of that extremely critical as far as developing economies are concerned. Climate goals, again, the West imposing undue costs on the developing countries, and we are seeing the impact of that. Now, these are some of the issues that India has been highlighting as a leader of the global south and using India's presidency of G20 to bring global focus on these issues. But some of the Western countries or the developed countries remain very focused on the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Again, look at the ground realities, Shiv. That's not a war of India's making or global South's making, and yet there are costs that are being imposed, whether it's food prices or energy prices or supply chains, that the global South bears the cost of something that's being done by the global North at a time where India is making very clear there's only one way, which is peace, dialogue and negotiations.
Gaurav, what about he answered very briefly that, about the bilateral with the Chinese foreign minister. What did you pick up from that? He pretty much said what he tweeted as well, which is that the discussion centered around, the bilateral challenges, especially peace and tranquility in the border areas. Was there any indication from what he said, that there has been any kind of forward movement?
Well, there's a very firm stand that India has taken, and there's a reiteration of that stand. And that stand is for the relationship to move forward. Peace and tranquility at the borders is essential. That's the basic. And if you notice, from 2020 to 2023, India's stance has remained the same. For this relationship to move forward, China will have to restore the April-May 2020 situation. Now, we're still waiting for a readout of the Chinese side. Perhaps that'll come today, later tomorrow, maybe what the Chinese Foreign Ministry says, and we'll have a little more idea of what the Chinese thinking is. But there is no dilution of India's stand. Remember, Shiv, you and I have talked about this before. You and I have covered this on Ground Zero. It's the largest standoff between the armies of India and China that's on from April-May 2020 till now, and neither side willing to back down.
Okay, neither side willing to back down. Let's just quickly summarize for you what the External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has just said. He said that an attempt was made to evolve consensus, but that hasn't happened at the G20 so far. Attempts are still, of course, being made. Today is day 1, tomorrow is day 2 of the foreign ministers meet. But let me just read out exactly what our sources have told us pertaining to this particular story. It says, we spent about 45 minutes talking to each other. He's talking about his meeting with the foreign minister of China. He also says that the Ukraine conflict has been the main reason for no joint consensus or communique as part of the G20 foreign ministers meet so far. Take a look at the crucial soundbite from what the foreign minister just said.
I met Minister Chingang on the sidelines of the conference this afternoon. It's our first meeting after he took over as foreign minister. So we spent, I don't know, maybe about 45 minutes talking to each other. There are real problems in that relationship that need to be looked at, that need to be discussed very openly and candidly between us. That's what we sought to do today. We also had a brief discussion on what was happening in the G20 framework, but the thrust of the meeting was really on our bilateral relationship and the challenges in the bilateral relationship, especially that of peace and tranquility in the border areas.
Okay, Gaurav continues to be with me. Gaurav, Dr. Jaishankar saying very clearly in no ambiguous terms that it is the Ukraine war that has been mainly responsible for the lack of any kind of consensus in the G20 foreign ministers meet so far. Today is day 1, tomorrow is day 2, Gaurav. Are we to understand that the delegations, the teams are still trying to work something out? Because Lavrov came out all guns blazing today against the Western delegations.
Oh, he absolutely did. In fact, he hit out at some of the Western, leaders, given that some of them, according to him, boycotted or stayed away from the dinner. Some of them behaved, as he said, in a very difficult manner. But India's effort has been to bring Russia and America at least on the talking table, on the dialogue table. And the External Affairs Minister responded to a question. There was some speculation that the Russian Foreign Minister and the American Secretary of State would be meeting separately away from cameras. He did respond that, well, there was some movement, but not in as many words. So India's been trying. Have we been successful as a nation? Maybe not completely at this stage, but the effort continues. Then again, Shiv, India's point is that one issue of Russia-Ukraine conflict or something that Europe and America are focused on should not derail G20 that talks about not just what's happening in the developed world, but the developing economies. It's the voice of the global south that must be heard, the issues that the developing economies face, whether it's food security or energy security, rising prices, climate challenges. All of these are issues that must be addressed, and they're equally important and cannot be held hostage to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And that's the point India has been repeatedly making. Unfortunately, European countries and America remain focused on trying to ostracize Russia or have other countries call out Russia for the Russia-Ukraine conflict, Shiv.
Gaurav, stay with me, because the Russia-Ukraine war, which Gaurav has covered, he was the first Indian journalist there last year once the invasion began. It remains, this whole year later, the biggest elephant in the room. It's the biggest world issue, and it's also the biggest elephant in the room at this ongoing G20 foreign ministers meet in India's national capital. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar held that bilateral with Sergei Lavrov earlier today. The Russian foreign minister, also well known as one of Russian President Vladimir Putin's right-hand men, was here, and he, like I said, began his public engagements by attacking all of the Western delegations and basically saying that they've been blackmailing other economies. In his briefing, Lavrov not only lauded India and Prime Minister Modi's role in governance as the Ukraine war shadow loomed across the globe, but continuing his tirade against the Western nations, Lavrov claimed that it was the West, especially the United States and the UK, that had derailed peace talks between Russia and Ukraine and had been amping up pressure to isolate Russia from the rest of the world. External Affairs Minister Jaishankar also addressed the global impact of the war that has been raging for over 12 months now. Jaishankar stated that while the G20 focused on strengthening multilateralism, the war's impact has largely affected the global south. And he very tellingly said, it is this war that has meant no joint communique, no joint consensus has been involved at the G20 so far.
You know, is the conflict impacting the global south? Of course it is. I mean, it's not something new. In fact, India has been saying this very strongly for pretty much close to a year, that, this is affecting, in fact, today in my own session, I actually used the word saying for much of the global south, this is a make or break issue. That the costs of fuel, the cost of food, the cost of fertilizer, the availability of fertilizer, which means next year's food, these are all extremely pressing issues. And if you see some of the countries who were already struggling with debt, who were already impacted by the pandemic, for them, this conflict, the knock-on effects of this conflict coming on top of that has been really, damaging is a very, very mild word. On one particular issue, because of very polarized views of some countries, we were not able to bridge it on this particular occasion. Whereas, as our colleague pointed out from there, we were able to do that with, a number of us were able to do that collectively in Bali. But obviously, the Bali situation today, for whatever reason, some countries feel cannot be extrapolated. In fact, this meeting was able to get everybody around the table. And as I said, this is no easy task given the state of polarization in the world.
Today, when addressing the participants of the foreign minister meeting, President Modi, I think he presented balanced and responsible position of the country as the president of the G20. And in this address, he was not just speaking about some isolated individual situations, because the West is trying to divide the geopolitical picture into individual episodes. But in the address by Mr. Modi, he gave the assessment of the situation across the globe.
Оценка общего состояния дел в мире, напомню в очередной раз.
When we are called to start negotiations, I do not remember anyone from the Western colleagues, anyone else from any other countries, talk to Ukraine to call them upon them to start negotiations, because Ukraine is encouraged to continue war. When Ukraine was ready to be engaged in negotiations last March, Ukraine was slapped on their wrists. Everyone knows this, the United States, the United Kingdom, and from what I understand, they told the Kiev regime, if Russians are ready to sign an agreement on resolving the situation, it means that we need to drag it out, that we need to make them weaker to achieve the victory on the battlefield, to defeat them on the battlefield, to achieve the strategic defeat of Russia.
Let's bring Gaurav back in on this. Gaurav, what does this say about what's going to happen next between Russia and Ukraine? Because you've got Lavrov pretty much pointing a direct finger at the US and UK and saying that any possibility of normalization of peace talks between Russia and Ukraine have been hampered deliberately by the UK and the United States.
Shiv, this has been Russia's case all throughout, that Russia is actually fighting the United States and NATO. Ukraine is just a tool in between. Peace talks between Russia and Ukraine they couldn't move forward because America and the UK didn't want it, according to Sergei Lavrov. So that's one part of the story. The second part is that even President Putin pointed out how Europe and America continue to arm Ukraine, and that's actually prolonging the war. That's prolonging the pain that people are facing. The global effort should be to bring about a consensus, negotiated settlement, dialogue, and that is not happening. The war is actually being encouraged with more weapons being supplied to Ukraine. That's, of course, Russia's point of view. India's point of view constantly has been that India can play a role, but a settlement can only be found through dialogue. Hostilities need to stop. Dialogue is the way forward, and that is where the world needs to come together. But as External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar clearly pointed out, that the stance taken by the opposing sides are so diverse that it wasn't possible to bridge that gap today.
Gaurav, stay with me. Let's listen into what Prime Minister Modi said in his address earlier today to the G20 foreign ministers. Remember, this is how the summit today began. It's been a very dramatic day. Many things have been said. But here's what the Prime Minister said right at the start.
They are also the ones most affected by global warming caused by richer countries. This is why India's G20 presidency has tried to give a voice to the global south. No group can claim global leadership without listening to those most affected by its decisions. Excellencies, you are meeting at a time of deep global divisions. As Foreign Minister, it is but natural that your discussions are affected by the geopolitical tensions of the day. We all have our positions and our perspectives on how this tension should be resolved. We must also admit that the tragic consequences of this failure are being faced most of all by the developing countries. After years of progress, we are at risk today of moving back on the Sustainable Development Goals. Many developing countries are struggling with unsustainable debt while trying to ensure food and energy security for their people. We have seen stable economies suddenly overwhelmed by debt and financial crisis. These experiences clearly show the need for resilience in our societies, in our economies, in our healthcare systems, and in our infrastructure. The G20 has a critical role to play in finding the right balance between growth and efficiency on one hand and resilience on the other. We can reach this balance more easily by working together. That is why your meeting is important. I have full trust in your collective wisdom and ability. I am sure that today's meeting will be ambitious, inclusive, action-oriented, and will rise above differences. Excellencies, we must all acknowledge that multilateralism is in crisis today. The architecture of global governance created after the Second World War was to serve two functions. First, to prevent future wars by balancing competing interests. Second, to foster international cooperation on issues of common interests. The experience of the last few years, financial crisis, climate change, pandemic, terrorism, and wars clearly shows that global governance has failed. At the leading economies of the world, we also have a responsibility toward those who are not in this room. The world looks upon the G20 to ease the challenges of growth, development, economic resilience, disaster resilience, financial stability, transnational crime, corruption, terrorism, and food and energy security. In all these areas, the G20 has capacity to build consensus and deliver concrete results. India has selected the theme of One Earth, One Family, One Future for its G20 presidency. It signals the need for unity of purpose and unity of action. I hope that your meeting today will reflect the spirit of coming together for achieving common and concrete objectives.
Let's go across to India Today's Akshay Dongre for more. Akshay, what does the rest of the day look like as far as the G20 is concerned? These very big bilaterals have just taken place. What next?
Well, Shiv, as far as the rest of the day is concerned, there is going to be a press conference by the US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken.
Yeah.
So we have seen fireworks now coming from Sergei Lavrov, who accused the UK, the US, the entire West of sabotaging the outcomes of the G20, of how India would have expected it to be as far as the foreign ministers meet is concerned. In fact, Sergei Lavrov also apologized, according to our colleague Geeta Mohan, who has been reporting all day on this, that Sergei Lavrov also apologized on behalf of the West, that this is not how the entire event should have been, how the outcome should have been. So now we can expect a fireback from Antony Blinken as far as the allegations by Russia is concerned. Yes, there were very important bilaterals as far as the joint commune, however, is concerned. The countries could not be brought to a consensus. Dr. S. Jaishankar, the foreign ministers, had just held a briefing right here where I'm standing right now. He also said that we tried really hard, and it's not just India that tried really hard. There are a lot of countries who tried to persuade, to bridge the gap between the West and the Russia and China, but there could not be a consensus. In fact, the Bali the document of the G20 has come, the consensus document has come, and there is a footnote there that all countries agree to the joint document except para 3 and 4, which is not acceptable by China and Russia. This is similar to what happened in Bengaluru, where during the finance ministers meet, a similar kind of thing happened when when the G20 members tried to replicate the Bali Declaration. The para 3 and 4, which mentions war, which mentions Ukraine, which mentions aggression, they could not be accepted by China and Russia. Situations have changed, yes. On the ground in Ukraine, there is a lot of pressure on Russia as far as this conflict is concerned.
Stay with me, Akshay. Let me just come back to you in just a moment. This, another big sort of Kodak moment at the G20, has been the meeting between the Prime Minister and the Italian Prime Minister as well. Many, many important images from the G20 have come to the fore. Some of those images have gone viral as well. This high-octane Raisina dialogue also scheduled today. It's India's flagship conference on geopolitics and geostrategy is also kicking off today. On the sidelines of that dialogue, Prime Minister Modi held talks with his Italian counterpart, Giorgia Meloni, at Hyderabad House. Prime Minister Modi hailed the India-Italy 75th anniversary of that bilateral relationship. The Italian Prime Minister lauded Prime Minister Modi for having the highest approval ratings in the world for a world leader. Both leaders vowed to strengthen bilateral ties and joined hands to begin defense cooperation as well.
एक और क्षेत्र है जो दोनों देश एक नया अध्याय शुरू कर रहे हैं और वो है रक्षा सहयोग का। भारत में डिफेंस मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सेक्टर में को प्रोडक्शन एंड को डेवलपमेंट के अवसर बन रहे हैं जो दोनों देशों के लिए लाभदायक हो सकते हैं। हमने दोनों देशों की सेनाओं के बीच नियमित रूप से जॉइंट एक्सरसाइज और ट्रेनिंग कोर्सेज आयोजित करने का भी निर्णय लिया। आतंकवाद और अलगाववाद के खिलाफ लड़ाई में भारत और इटली कंधे से कंधा मिलाकर चल रहे हैं। हमने इस सहयोग को और मजबूत करने पर विस्तार पूर्वक चर्चा की। एक और क्षेत्र है जो दोनों देश एक नया अध्याय शुरू कर रहे हैं और वो है रक्षा सहयोग का। भारत में डिफेंस मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सेक्टर में को प्रोडक्शन एंड को डेवलपमेंट के अवसर बन रहे हैं जो दोनों देशों के लिए लाभदायक हो सकते हैं। हमने दोनों देशों की सेनाओं के बीच नियमित रूप से जॉइंट एक्सरसाइज और ट्रेनिंग कोर्सेज आयोजित करने का भी निर्णय लिया। आतंकवाद और अलगाववाद के खिलाफ लड़ाई में भारत और इटली कंधे से कंधा मिलाकर चल रहे हैं। हमने इस सहयोग को और मजबूत करने पर विस्तार पूर्वक चर्चा की। यूक्रेन संघर्ष के शुरुआत से ही भारत ने यह स्पष्ट किया है कि इस विवाद को केवल डायलॉग और डिप्लोमेसी के जरिए ही सुलझाया जा सकता है और भारत किसी भी शांति प्रक्रिया में योगदान देने के लिए पूर्ण रूप से तैयार है।
I firmly believe that there's a lot that we can do together, and I'm not sure if this will lead me to the approval rate that the Prime Minister Modi has reached. I think it's the most loved one of all around the world. But I mean, this has really proven that he has been a major leader, and congratulations for that, Prime Minister. This is my first bilateral visit in this region ever since I took office, and we want to further boost this relation, and this is the reason why we have decided to turn our partnership in a strategic partnership, because we have a very solid relationship. There's a lot to be working on together, starting from some sectors where we want to enhance our cooperation. Let me mention defense, which was mentioned by the Prime Minister, and energy security. India has set up major objectives in this connection. Prime Minister Modi knows very well Italy's position, which is giving full support to the territorial integrity of Ukraine, and we both hope that India, having the presidency of the G20, may play a central role in facilitating a negotiating process for the cessation of hostilities for a just peace.
We've got some breaking news coming in that the Quad meet of the 4 foreign ministers of the Quad alliance of India, the United States, Japan and Australia will be meeting on the 3rd of March. That's the breaking story that I'm bringing to you right now. I want to go across to India Today's Akshay Dongre, who's with me live on this story. Akshay, big Quad meet. On the 3rd of March, India, Australia, the United States, Japan, the foreign ministers of these 4 countries will be meeting right after the G20 foreign ministers meet.
Well, absolutely, Shiv, and this is going to be a big meeting because it's happening at the sidelines of India's Raisina dialogue that is taking place right now. But when we are talking about the 4 foreign ministers that will be taking part, it is noteworthy to mention here that even the Japanese foreign minister will be taking part in this particular meeting because he was not present here today. As far as the G20 foreign ministers meeting is concerned. But the major news point here is that how is it going to impact the coalition here? Because when we are talking about the Quad Leader Summit that took place earlier, we saw that when Prime Minister Narendra Modi, when he was in Japan, we saw that Russia and China conducted, there was an air exercise that was very close to Japanese water, which is very clear that China and Russia are urged by the Quad. So how exactly are they going to respond to this meeting that is taken just after the G20 summit? That is a big question, but certainly it is not going to go down well with China at least. And when it comes to Russia as well, Russia has also been dismissive of the efforts, especially by Japan and the US. In terms of trying to forge closer ties with India, which it also considers a very, very traditional ally. There will be a meeting.
China has been very dismissive of the Quad. It's going to be interesting to see, what reaction comes in from China because, obviously a Quad meeting of the 4 foreign ministers of India, the US, Japan and Australia was always going to be on the cards, on the sidelines of this geopolitical, event here in the national capital of India. Gaurav, what would you say about this Quad meeting happening at this time?
Shiv, this is a very important grouping, and this grouping, even though Japan's deputy foreign minister is here, not the foreign minister, but this grouping remains extremely important, and China keeps a hawk-eye. It does feel very threatened by this grouping, especially as you and Akshay have been reporting on the freedom of navigation patrols that have been carried out, including in South and East China Sea by this grouping. The fact that multiple exercises and multilateral exercises have been carried out by this grouping. They talk about counter-terrorism, they talk about disaster relief, whatever they may do. The fact that there's interoperability in these nations, the area in which they operate, that's India's backwaters. That's also an area where China is trying to make inroads, and that is where China feels extremely threatened, especially with the intelligence sharing, with anti-submarine warfare, service navies operating together. And that is where China knows that the moment it crosses the Malacca Straits, enters India's backwaters, then it's actually dealing with multiple navies cooperating very close together, whether it's the United States of America or Japan or Australia or India. They're all operating in tandem, in sync about every movement, and that's critical.
Gaurav, thanks very much for joining me on this. Remember, the Prime Minister will be addressing the Raisina dialogue very, very shortly. It will be the Prime Minister's second address of the day. It's been a politically very satisfying day for the Prime Minister and his party, the BJP, over political performance in the 3 big state elections in the Northeast. But he's got his hands full today with the Raisina dialogue and the G20 because he is, after all, playing host. That big speech is coming up by the Prime Minister very shortly. These are some of the big events that have taken place around the G20. Come right back. We'll have the Prime Minister speaking live and also a big press conference by the US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken. All of that and much more in our continuing broadcast right here on India Today. Stay with us.
जैसे सबसे तेज आपकी टैगलाइन है, तो इसी तरह से सबसे तेज हमारी सरकार की लाइफलाइन है.
Leader must have a vision. We will continue to work with the developing and the developed world for win-win solutions.
Nature had of course willed the survival of the fittest.
हम आतंकवाद के खिलाफ जीरो टॉलरेंस की पॉलिसी को अपनाए हुए हैं.
1 साल के अंदर राहुल कन्वर की कार जो होगी वो इलेक्ट्रिक की होगी।
There is a confrontation of competing visions.
Arnold Schwarzenegger is back. The Terminator star is all set to return with an upcoming comedy series titled Fubar.
I'm back, baby.
The drama will address normal family concerns set against a worldwide backdrop of espionage, action and humor, forcing characters to work together as partners.
Back, baby.
Ow! That's what you get for being sentimental. The 8-episodic series will also feature Monica Barbaro, Jay Baruchel, Fortune Famester, Milan Carter and Travis Van Winkle among others. Fubar will premiere on 25th May on streaming giant Netflix.
I'm back, baby.
Ow! That's what you get for being sentimental.
In a crowded place, can you just imagine? It's unparalleled, the way it all just happened. If you can't have
Wow singer Sabrina Carpenter and Shawn Mendes are reportedly dating, and the couple was spotted strolling in Los Angeles.
asking what it's like to be loved like this, to be recognized behind the scenes. Maybe vulnerable, you make me so vulnerable.
I won't lie to you.
The Treat You Better hitmaker was spotted wearing a pair of blue corduroy pants, a white shirt and a shearling-lined jean jacket for the outing, while Carpenter kept things casual in an oversized black sweatshirt and sneakers.
And you're spending all your time in this wrong situation, and anytime you want it to stop, I know I can treat you better than he can. And any girl like you.
The news of their dating comes as a surprise after Shawn Mendes was reportedly linked romantically with his chiropractor Dr. Jocelyn Miranda. According to reports, the couple has been spending a lot of time together following Shawn Mendes' split from Camila Cabello after 3 years of dating.
I'll stop time for you the second you say you'd like me to. रुख जिंदगी ने मोड़ लिया कैसा, हमने सोचा नहीं था कभी ऐसा, आता नहीं यकीन क्या से क्या हो गया, किस तरह मैं तुमसे बेवफा हो गया.
This short video has made Amarjeet Jaikar an overnight internet sensation.
मेरे सामने थी जो वो गली जिसमें रहती थी एक परी, उस पे मैं मर मिट गया.
Jaikar, who lives in Bhavwa village in Samastipur district, has been singing for 7 years. After the new video went viral, Lady Luck has smiled on him. Bollywood actor Sonu Sood is giving Jaikar a chance in his film Fateh. Jaikar is also exploring other options.
मैं अपना चेहरा देखा करता हूँ।
कहते हैं ना कि एक बिहारी 100 पे भारी, तो एक चीज़ बहुत अच्छा सर ने लिखा था और मुझे ये नहीं पता था, मैं आपको कसम से बताऊं कि वायरल हो जाए मेरा वीडियो, ऐसा मेरा कुछ सोच नहीं था। बस ऐसा था कि फेसबुक जो होता है ना कुछ अर्निंग देता है, तो मुझे उसके बारे में पता चला, तो मैंने सोचा कि हाँ मैं वो करके अपना कुछ अच्छा कर पाऊँगा, तो बस करने लगा, वीडियो अपलोड करने। नेशनल लेवल में अभी मैंने राइजिंग स्टार, सारेगामापा, इंडियन आइडल में मेरा इस बार सेकेंड राउंड तक मेरा हुआ था, उसके बाद फिर मैं चला आया घर।
आने वाला पल जाने वाला है, हो सके तो इसमें जिंदगी बिता दो, पल जो ये जाने वाला है।
Jaishankar credits his teacher for his success.
जाने वाला है।
हमारे विक्की भैया थे, तो मैंने इनको बोला भैया कि मैं भी गाता हूँ, कि आप मुझे सिखाइएगा। तो बोले नहीं नहीं नहीं, तुमसे कुछ नहीं होगा, ये सब जो करता है बड़ा घर का लड़का करता है, जो संगीतकार का बच्चा होता है वही करता है। बोले नहीं नहीं, हम पूरा इनको रो रो के बोले थे, आप शायद इनको याद होगा। फिर 2 दिन बाद ये मेरे पास आए, बोले कि कैसे बजाते, तो मैं सारेगामापा नहीं सब वो उल्टा गलत वलत बजा रहा था। तो फिर इन्होंने मुझे प्रारंभ जो होता है ना शुरुआती का सब इन्होंने मुझे बताया, फिर मैं अनेकों गुरु से सीखना स्टार्ट कर दिया। तो सबसे प्रथम गुरु हमारे विक्की भैया।
जिए तो जिए कैसे हाय बिन आप।
Jaishankar's father runs a hair salon in the village.
लगता नहीं दिल कहीं।
It was when his father bought him a mobile phone that he put it to good use, shooting videos of songs with his scenic village as the background, which have now become a rage. Jaishankar aims to support his family with the earning from his singing career. Bureau Report, India Today.
श्रीवल्ली में नामदक बर्फी।
And Prime Minister Modi has just tweeted his congratulations to BJP karyakartas and workers on the election results in the 3 big northeastern states. Celebrations have broken out at the respective party offices in Nagaland, Tripura and Meghalaya. The Prime Minister, for instance, on Meghalaya has said, grateful to all those who supported BJP in the assembly polls. We will keep working hard to enhance the development trajectory of Meghalaya and focus on empowering the people of the state. I'm also thankful to our party workers for the effort they put out. On Tripura, he said, thank you, Tripura. This is a vote for progress and stability. The BJP will continue to boost the state's growth trajectory. I am proud of all Tripura BJP Karyakartas for their spectacular efforts at the grassroots levels. And in Nagaland, where the BJP is in alliance with the NDPP, he said, I thank the people of Nagaland for blessing the NDPP-BJP alliance with yet another mandate to serve this state. The double-engine government will keep working for the state's progress. I laud our party workers for their hard work, which has ensured this result. Let's go straight across to India Today's Preeti Chaudhary, who's been leading our broadcast through the day today and decoding these results. Preeti, the numbers are still firming up in some ways, but the mandate appears to be clear. There is talk of a big BJP celebration in the national capital as well. What are you hearing? How is the BJP looking at these numbers? Are they happy?
Well, Shiv, first up, I would hope you give your voice a rest. You're sounding quite bad there. But the numbers firmed up, Shiv. Now, most seats have been declared. Very few leads are left, 1 or 2 here or there. So, the election has been called in all 3 states. Tripura, 32. Seats have gone out of 60 have gone to BJP. So BJP clearly over the halfway mark. 30 was the halfway mark. And that's the reason why you have this tweet by the Prime Minister where he says, "Thank you, Tripura. This is a vote for progress, stability. BJP in Tripura will continue to boost the state's growth trajectory. I'm proud of all Tripura Karyakartas for their spectacular efforts at the grassroots." So this is Tripura, BJP's home. And Tripura was very important, Shiv, for the Bharatiya Janata Party. Understandably, a party in 2013, 2% went to 2018 to 44%, practically taking the entire Congress vote base with it. Many had called it an inorganic growth. So for this, it's consolidation by the BJP. It's consolidated on the vote it got in 2018. So it's a big, big one for the Bharatiya Janata Party there. On the other hand, Shiv, it'll be interesting because if you look at these 3 tweets, now this is a tweet which calls out the win, thanks the Karyakarta, says we're going to do a great job going ahead where Tripura is concerned. On the other hand, you have this 3rd tweet which he's thanking the people of Nagaland and blessings to the NDPP. He's in alliance, which is the BJP's in alliance with the NDPP there. The BJP right now has zeroed in on 12 seats in Nagaland. So that's not bad at all. And with the NDPP, they are well over the 34 figure. So, they're in majority. They're going to form the government there. He says that this alliance is yet another mandate to serve the state. The double-engine government will keep working for the state's progress. I laud our party workers for their hard work, which ensured this result. So, he's talking about the double-engine growth there as well. But what's interesting also is right on top. Now, that is his last tweet, which is Meghalaya. He says, "Grateful to all those who have supported BJP in Meghalaya. We will keep working hard to enhance development trajectory of Meghalaya and focus on empowering the people of the state. I'm thankful to our party workers for the effort that they put in." Meghalaya, Shiv, the BJP, which looked as if it would have trebled its tally, it was 2 in 2018, has now wrapped up its tally at 3. So it's increased by 1, but still 3 is rather less, but enough for it to form the government with the NPP. Because the NPP is at 25 right now, so plus 3, and with a few more in independence, BJP, there would be an alliance, but the alliance hasn't formed up. So that's the reason why there is no congratulations to the NPP. So, wait for that tweet also to come up, how the alliance comes together in Meghalaya.
Okay, Preeti, thanks for rounding that up for us. The Prime Minister will be headed to the BJP headquarters in the national capital a little after 7 p.m. It's been a very busy day for him. But remember, this is the first set of elections in 2023. The road to 2024 has begun in right earnest, and the BJP will milk this to the hilt. They see this as a big political message that 2024 is a done deal. Look at how 2023 has begun. All of that will happen at the BJP headquarters starting 7 p.m. with the Prime Minister there. Preeti will bring you that special live broadcast at 7 p.m. Don't forget to tune in. Up next after this very short break, remember, we're waiting on the Prime Minister's big speech at the Raisina Dialogues. Gaurav Sawant takes you through that special broadcast on the other side of this break. Stay with us.
Have seen Iron Man Tony Stark wear it to reach war zones. You have seen Shah Rukh Khan and John Abraham wage a war in the sky wearing these. Jetpack suits are now going to be part of military drills and rescue operations. The Indian Army will soon adopt jetpack technology. These suits will be used for enhanced tactical mobility on line of actual control amid border tensions with China. The Indian Aerospace Defense News shared a demo on Twitter of its jetpack flying over a water body, buildings and fields. Soldiers will be able to fly 10 to 15 meters in the air by wearing this suit powered by a gas turbine engine. They can clock a speed of 50 km per hour. Jetpacks were the center of attraction at the Aero India 2023 held recently.
अगर टेक्नोलॉजी के बारे में बात करेंगे, ये पूरा टर्बोजेट इंजन से चलता है। इसका डीजल फ्यूल है। हमने डीजल इसलिए चूज़ किया कि डीजल का जो फ्लैश पॉइंट एंड फायर पॉइंट है वो नॉर्मल एविएशन फ्यूल से काफ़ी आगे है।
Jetpacks are being tested by armed forces across the world. These videos from the UK highlight the features of the technology. In the first video, one can see how a soldier lands on the deck and drops a ladder over the side for the
ranked #1 in ease of doing business. All these speak volumes about how proactive the state is, especially when industry representatives now are part of the procedure which actually awards ease of doing business.
Andhra Pradesh, we have the natural advantage, especially for logistics sector. We have the excellent opportunities.
Infrastructure is very, very stable. So that's the reason why we decided to invest more business unit and bring from to Japan.
So come over to Andhra Pradesh, have a feel of the state, and I assure you that you would enjoy the way forward. And we are here to give you an experience in Andhra Pradesh that would be different from any other state.
Welcome to the Andhra Pradesh Global Investors Summit 2023, March 3rd and 4th in Visakhapatnam. Come experience the advantage Andhra Pradesh, where abundance meets prosperity.
I look forward to meeting you, all of you, once again in Visakhapatnam.
Foreign ministers of the world's most powerful nations are assembling in New Delhi for a G20 meet under the cloud of the
Emperors of Rome.
Tom Hiddleston will reportedly reprise his role as the protagonist Jonathan Pine in the second season of Night Manager.
My name's Pine. I'm the night manager.
To bring the money to us, we give you back the boy.
You'll be in so deep, you'll worry that you'll never get out.
I got nothing to lose.
According to reports, the show will begin filming later this year in London and South America under the codename Steelworks.
My main man, my star.
I think you might be playing both sides.
We need Richard Roper. I'm going to get you out of here.
The series revolves around Pine, a former British soldier and night manager of a 5-star hotel in Cairo, who is hired by the head of a foreign office team to infiltrate Roper's inner circle.
Anyone can betray anyone.
Penned by Farr and directed by Susan Bayer, the first season also starred Olivia Colman, Tom Hollander, Elizabeth Debicki and David Harewood, among others.
I'm the night manager.
To bring the money to us, we give you back the boy.
You'll be in so deep, you'll worry that you'll never get out.
I got nothing to lose.
You saved my boy. Welcome to the family. अंधेरे के उस पार रोशनी नहीं.
The Hindi adaptation of The Night Manager starring Aditya Roy Kapoor as Pine and Anil Kapoor as Roper was launched earlier this month on the OTT platform Disney Plus Hotstar and will reportedly have a second season as well.
It's showtime now.
शैलेंद्र रुंगटा एक आर्म्स डीलर है जो लोगों के खून से पैसा कमाता है.
मुझे छू भी पाना इंडियन इंटेलिजेंस के बस की बात ही नहीं है.
शली की लंका गिराने के लिए मुझे अपना विभीषण चाहिए.
मेरा इससे कुछ लेना देना नहीं है. मैं कोई सीक्रेट एजेंट नहीं हूँ. मैं एक नाइट मैनेजर हूँ.
Traveling from different parts.
Armed with facts,
Looking at political back.
she takes the news by its horns.
Do you think the future of these students are not hampered?
Fierce, bold, and direct, setting the tone for the bigger stories from every corner and every angle. Expect nothing but the unfiltered truth.
News first, niceties later. Watch me, Nabila Jamal, on India Today.
Co-powered by Hyundai Ioniq 5, the all-electric SUV. Co-powered by घर लेना हो या बेचना 99 acres से ही पूछना. Co-powered by Aditya Birla Capital.
First India-China bilateral since the LAC standoff. Ukraine war divides the world.
You know, is the conflict impacting the global south? Of course it is.
Russia calls out Western hypocrisy.
Ukraine was slapped on the wrists. Everyone knows this. The United States, the United Kingdom.
Prime Minister says focus on what unites us.
We can reach this balance more easily by working together.
Vishwaguru spotlight on India.
Hello and welcome. You're watching India Today. I'm Gaurav Sawant. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's word of advice to the G20 foreign ministers. A meeting that was attended by 27 foreign ministers and 2 ministers of state for foreign affairs. Multilateralism is facing a crisis. But the issue that we are raising here on India Today is the West holding the developing countries to ransom. What are the key takeaways? We'll discuss that in greater detail. I'm Gaurav Sawant. As always, let's get started with the headlines. India leads the global south at G20, says Ukraine war a make or break issue. Russia slams the hypocrisy of the West. External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar and his Chinese counterpart hold talks on the LAC situation.
Clear edge for the BJP in Tripura. BJP leads in 34 seats. Left and Congress lead in 14. Tirpa Mota leads in 11. Modi's victory lap at 7 p.m. in Delhi. BJP NDPP near 2/3 majority in Nagaland. BJP hopes to form government with NPP Meghalaya. There's a split verdict. Supreme Court orders SEBI probe on manipulation of stock prices in Adani Hindenburg case. Says report to expert panel within 2 months. Adani welcomes the move. Says truth shall prevail. Big Supreme Court verdict on appointment of Election Commission Chief. Says CEC must be appointed like the CBI Chief. Panel of Prime Minister, Leader of Opposition in Parliament and the Chief Justice of India must appoint the CEC. Bulldozers roll into Prayagraj for the second straight day. Another house linked to Umesh Pal murder accused raised. The house belongs to gangster turned Neta Atiq Ahmed's key aide. Is the BJP moving forward on government formation in Meghalaya? The Chief Minister of Assam, Himant Biswa Sarma, has just tweeted that Conrad Sangma, Chief Minister of Meghalaya, called on Amit Shah, the Union Home Minister, and sought his support and blessings in forming the new government. So is the writing now very clearly on the ball? You have the numbers of Meghalaya right there on your television screen in Meghalaya. The Congress down to 5, NPP 25, BJP 4, others 25. 25 and 4. Is that the way forward? I quickly want to cut across to India Today's Preeti Chaudhary for more on this. Preeti, what does this mean?
Well, Gaurav, the latest that is coming in right now clearly seems to suggest that the BJP and the NPP are once again set to form government in Meghalaya after what has been a very acrimonious battle and a campaign where at one point of time Conrad Sangma didn't even allow the Prime Minister's helicopter to land, or to the Bharatiya Janata Party, calling the NPP corrupt, calling the NPP dynastic. But all of that clearly now in the past. A government is in order and Meghalaya is once again going to go with the BJP and the NPP combined with, in all probabilities, I would reckon Conrad Sangma as the Chief Minister. What is interesting here, Gaurav, is that as the numbers are now clearly firming up, 25 is what the NPP has wrapped up on. Unprecedented in terms of even the NPP or Conrad Sangma would never have imagined that he'd be doing this well. So clearly by going solo, he's dug in his heels. He's done exceedingly well. Will this be a new chapter for the NPP where the Northeast is concerned as a party or a leader of the stature of Conrad Sangma, because he's gained a lot. If the party had not done well, it would have completely decimated Conrad Sangma, but this has taken him to an entirely different level. But having said that, Gaurav, you know what's interesting is I want to take you through the tweet by Himanta Biswa Sarma. Of course, Himanta Biswa Sarma on the 28th of February had met Conrad Sangma, and there was an understanding that if numbers come together, an alliance will be in order. And he's now tweeted out saying, Shri Conrad Sangma, Chief Minister of Meghalaya, called Amit Shahji, who's the Home Minister, and sought his support and blessings in forming the new government. The operative word, Gaurav, is sought his support. That would mean right now the BJP is leading on 1 and 3 seats it has already won. So we are looking at least a support of 3, if not 4. They would still need about 2 more. Or at least, I would reckon, Himanta Biswa Sarma, who's managing the BJP affairs in the Northeast, would be looking at a comfortable margin. So 25 of the NPP, they would need 5 for the halfway mark, 3 BJP is bringing, if not 4, so that comes to 29 if it is 4. They need 1 or 2. They will seek help from smaller parties. I don't think maybe the UDP, not this time around, because the UDP had come into support in 2018. It was NPP, UDP and the BJP. So let's see how this pans out. But one thing is for sure now, Gaurav, the BJP in whatever capacity, one in full strength in Tripura and now in Nagaland, with an alliance in Nagaland with the NDPP, but where it comes down to Meghalaya, now in alliance in Meghalaya as well. So in all 3 states, the BJP is going to be, if not the government, then a part of governance.
Keep tracking that story. I will come back to you for more. Preeti Chaudhary, for the moment, many thanks. So it's India's big moment at the G20. Of course, the summit is in September, but that the foreign ministers meeting, and this was extremely crucial. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar said 27 foreign ministers attended it. Of course, there were 2 ministers of state. As India hosts its first Big Bang G20 meeting, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had a video message for the G20 foreign ministers, and he called upon the G20 countries to build consensus on pressing global challenges and not allow their differences on geopolitical tensions to affect the overall cooperation. This as the shadow of the Russia-Ukraine war looms large on the summit. Prime Minister Narendra Modi urged the foreign ministers to find common ground on divisive issues. Let there be more issues of commonality than divisions and build on that commonality. This, the External Affairs Minister said, was taking India's civilizational ethos forward. He warned that global governance so far, that architecture had failed on several key aspects. Multilateralism is facing a crisis. It's one of the biggest challenges that the world faces. Whether it's issues of preventing war, that's where multilateralism has not succeeded. The Prime Minister also said that issues of global south need attention. The world must focus on it. Let's listen in to Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
They are also the ones most affected by global warming caused by richer countries. This is why India's G20 presidency has tried to give a voice to the global south. No group can claim global leadership without listening to those most affected by its decisions. Excellencies, you are meeting at a time of deep global divisions. As Foreign Minister, it is but natural that your discussions are affected by the geopolitical tensions of the day. We all have our positions and our perspectives on how this tension should be resolved. Excellencies, we must all acknowledge that multilateralism is in crisis today. The architecture of global governance created after the Second World War was to serve 2 functions. First, to prevent future wars by balancing competing interests. Second, to foster international cooperation on issues of common interests. The experience of the last few years, financial crisis, climate change, pandemic, terrorism, and wars clearly shows that global governance has failed. We have seen stable economies suddenly overwhelmed by debt and financial crisis. These experiences clearly show the need for resilience in our societies, in our economies, in our healthcare systems, and in our infrastructure. The G20 has a critical role to play in finding the right balance between growth and efficiency on one hand and resilience on the other. We can reach this balance more easily by working together. That is why your meeting is important. I have full trust in your collective wisdom and ability. I am sure that today's meeting will be ambitious, inclusive, action-oriented, and will rise above differences. We must also admit that the tragic consequences of this failure are being faced most of all by the developing countries. After years of progress, we are at risk today of moving back on the Sustainable Development Goals. Many developing countries are struggling with unsustainable debt while trying to ensure food and energy security for their people.
So the Prime Minister's emphasis was very clearly that the voice of Global South must be heard. But are the voices of Global South not being heard or being held hostage to the Russia-Ukraine conflict? Joining me on the broadcast is Ambassador Meera Shankar, India's former ambassador to the United States of America, Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, and Ambassador V.B. Soni, India's former ambassador to Ukraine. Ambassador Meera Shankar, the Prime Minister's advice to all the G20 foreign ministers was that the voice of Global South needs to be heard. According to you, ma'am, key takeaway, is the voice of Global South being ignored by the developed countries?
Well, I wouldn't say it's being ignored, but I think that divisions over Ukraine threaten to overwhelm the discussions in the G20, which were really not meant to deal with security or geopolitical issues. They were really supposed to focus on reviving sustainable economic growth, looking at sustainable development and climate change, looking at cooperation to address global pandemics. And there's a whole range of issues which were on the agenda of the G20 as priorities. And today we are seeing that the impact of the conflict in Ukraine has left economies, particularly in the developing world, reeling, trying to deal with the consequences of something that they had nothing to do with and are not really participating in. So fertilizer prices, food prices, energy prices, availability of energy, all these have become very serious issues for developing countries. If you look at South Asia itself, you can see economies collapsing all around. Sri Lanka today still has 50% inflation and is trying to negotiate a loan with the IMF to deal with its debt default, which had taken place because they didn't have enough foreign exchange for their import
requirements. The entire conversation from the Western countries, ma'am, appears to be focused around the Russia-Ukraine conflict. So, Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, is the West trying to hold Global South hostage to this Russia-Ukraine conflict? Is that what is happening?
No, I think that the Russia-Ukraine conflict is the elephant in the room. Nobody wants to talk about it, but at the same time, it can't be ignored because it impacts all aspects of the global economy. There is a shortage of food, of energy, there is global inflation, there are lower demands of goods and services, there is the falling economic growth in the developing countries. But the problem is that all these factors are being impacted by the Russia-Ukraine war. And that is why our Prime Minister had to emphasize that India's G20 presidency is for the global South. The problems of the global South have to be attended to, they have to be given due attention, and that the Russia-Ukraine war, which is so divisive, should not be allowed to take the focus away from these issues. So you're right that the Russia-Ukraine war is coming in the way. It is not something that the G20 should be dealing with, because the G20, as you pointed out, is an economic organization. But nonetheless, the situation is such that this war is having a very devastating effect on the global economy and in particular on the countries of the global South.
So are we to understand that unless the Russia-Ukraine war is addressed even on this platform, which isn't a security platform, it's an economic platform, came out of an economic crisis, is meant to address economic issues, but that political issue or that conflict issue, Ambassador V.B. Soni, will continue to hold the global South hostage? Where is that conversation about food security or energy security or sustainable development goals?
Well, it has been already brought out that the crisis has been hijacked because of a political agenda of the Western world. They want us to take sides on their issues which are of interest to them, but we are far removed from them and we have absolutely no control over the situation over there. So what is happening is, as a result of the conflict, all other issues get sidelined. Issues which are bread butter issues which are of great importance and which must be addressed are pertaining to the global South. So India's attempt, therefore, is not to hijack the system, which is already taking a lot of time and energy and effort, and in fact is proving divisive. Issues at G20 should be a lot more global in nature. Now it's a regional conflict in terms, so far as we from the global South are concerned. But we are being asked to take side. Why should we take side? Because these are of no interest to us. They are not. They do not impact us except in a negative way, when all the attention, all the resources, and all the policies are diverted to settling those personal scores.
So from an economic platform, then, Ambassador Meera Shankar, has this now become a political boxing ring, and is it divided right down the middle? For example, there is the Western bloc and perhaps the Russia-China bloc, and India is also being asked to take sides?
Well, I think India has to navigate very carefully and skillfully, and it did this in Bali. So you have a template which created a consensus to deal with a very divisive issue. Now both sides are, wanting to improve the Bali statement from their perspective, which makes it very divisive. I think if pragmatism is to prevail, then, you go back to the Bali template and put this issue aside and get on with the business of dealing with global challenges, which really are very serious at this point of time. To ignore them would be to do so at the peril of the peace and prosperity of the world. So, and it also risks actually G20 becoming either irrelevant or fragmenting in the long run, if we don't want this to happen, and it's in the interest of all countries not to have it happen, because you can't have large economies outside the framework of the G20 and yet claim that it would have, global significance or relevance, then I think an effort has to be made from both sides.
But then, the External Affairs Minister pointed that out, ma'am. And Ambassador Prabhudyal, if I could bring you in, sir, the External Affairs Minister pointed that out, that the two sides have taken such divergent views that it's at least today, or even in the finance ministers' meet, they were unable to bridge the gap, bridge the divide. Does this appear then this will continue? Because a lot has changed since Bali. Russia and China seem to be going back even on the Bali declaration. And does this then mean no communique, just this consensus document? And what does this mean for the summit in September?
Well, you're absolutely right in saying that there has been a hardening of the positions of the two rival blocs. There was a consensus reached in Bali, and India had put in a lot of efforts for making that possible. But last week, when the G20 finance ministers meeting ended in Bangalore, there was no joint communique. This indicated that with the Russia-Ukraine war now having continued for over a year, the two sides, the United States and the Western countries on one side, Russia and China on the other, both these sides have hardened their positions, and therefore it will become very difficult to work out a joint communique. You are right in assessing that perhaps as we move on to the summit, the positions may harden even further. But of course, who knows what happens in global politics? Maybe there would be some resolution found to the war. Maybe it will end. But if it continues in this manner, and if the positions of the two rival sides continue to harden, then I think we are going in for very difficult times.
Because the Prime Minister's word of advice that multilateralism is under challenge. The architecture so far, Ambassador Soni, they haven't been able to prevent wars. They haven't even been able to address issues of food and energy security. So, despite the fact that 27 foreign ministers attended this foreign ministers meet, 2 ministers of state, there isn't a communique, there is a consensus document. Does this indicate India not succeeding in being able to navigate this minefield, or India tried? It's just that the positions are so hard, so be it.
Well, you see, there are 6 more months left for this summit. And the purpose of having these meetings at the level of foreign minister and, of course, finance ministers, etc., is to find a way out. How do we go? There are a lot of meetings on the sideline. There are things which happen behind the scene. And that is exactly a tightrope walk which India has to undertake. And it has to undertake, and we must not give in. We still have 6 months. It's not going to be easy. In all likelihood, it may not succeed, but that doesn't mean that they should leave all the effort. I think India can possibly try to come up with some formula, some kind of a system, which a formula which can be acceptable to them. It has to continue. You cannot just give it up like this. Today, it looks little hopeless, but I would say that we must continue. The effort must continue.
Ambassador Shankar, did it look hopeless even to you, when you heard the foreign minister's press conference? And before I come to that in just a moment, I want our viewers to listen in to what the External Affairs Minister said about the G20 conversations that were happening and the efforts made by India.
I met Minister Chingang on the sidelines of the conference this afternoon. It's our first meeting after he took over as foreign minister. So we spent, I don't know, maybe about 45 minutes talking to each other. There are real problems in that relationship that need to be looked at, that need to be discussed very openly and candidly between us. That's what we sought to do today. We also had a brief discussion on what was happening in the G20 framework, but the thrust of the meeting was really on our bilateral relationship and the challenges in the bilateral relationship, especially that of peace and tranquility in the border areas. Excellencies, let us remind ourselves that this grouping bears an exceptional responsibility. We first came together in the midst of a global crisis and are today, once again, actually confronting multiple ones. In considering these issues, we may not always be of one mind. In fact, there are some matters of sharp differences of opinions and views. Yet, we must find common ground and provide direction, because that is what the world expects of us. The world must also strive for more reliable and resilient supply chains. Recent experience has underlined the risks of being dependent on limited geographies.
Ambassador Meera Shankar, is this your appreciation of the situation also? That even the G20 is now sharply divided? The Western Bloc and Russia, China on one side, and there is very little common ground on any issue because of Russia, Ukraine?
Yes, I think it is casting a shadow on the proceedings of the G20, and it would be in the interest of the world if the two sides could set aside their differences for the time being, or acknowledge them and keep them to a side, and try to find common ground on the global challenges which are of acute nature and which really are the primary concerns of the rest of the world.
But since that is not happening, Ambassador Dayal, what's the way forward? What's the road ahead? Because what happened at the finance ministers meet, when you're looking for more funds for energy security, for food security, for sustainable development goals, that doesn't seem to be happening either at the finance ministers meeting or the foreign ministers meeting. The entire focus of the West remains condemn Russia. The entire focus of Russia and China remains to stall this. What next then?
Well, our Prime Minister has given the best possible advice during his address today at the G20 Foreign Ministers meeting. He said that the divisive issues should be kept aside and the G20 should address the problems which it is supposed to address, that is the economic issues. He very categorically emphasized that the problems of the global South need attention, because in this entire scenario, the countries of the global South are suffering the most. And that is why he underlined that the presidency of India over the G20 will highlight the problems of the global South, and that perhaps is what needs to be done. On the other hand, if the world continues to be divided the way it is, and that is reflected in the G20 deliberations, then it will be difficult to find a way forward.
So is the G20 very clearly split wide open? Ambassador Soni, this is a grouping that was meant for economic development. It's now become a political or a diplomatic boxing ring?
Well, it is obvious that the split has taken place, but whether it's going to be permanent or is it just a temporary situation, as of now, it doesn't look temporary. But it has to be brought home. The point has to be brought home to both sides. I mean, amount of aid which was earlier given by the Western countries on the one side, and by the Russians and the Chinese to the African countries and those in Asia. So both of them are affected. I mean, China's obligations have also gone up so much because of the what is happening in our neighborhood. See Pakistan, see Sri Lanka. So that crisis is something which is going to affect not just the Western countries, but also the to the Chinese and the Russians. So we have to convey the message across that it is nobody's interest. It's not in the interest of the developing world. It's not the interest of the southern world. It's not in the interest either of the developed world and also the Chinese world. So the message has to be given, and India is the only country whose voice will be listened, is that set aside your current differences. Let's get to the real issues involved, and as it was mentioned earlier, that those issues which divide us can be set aside at a later stage, and then we will deal with that.
But that's a message that India has been constantly giving, Ambassador Shankar. That message, neither America, nor Europe, nor Russia and China seem to be getting that message. Are we looking at this very dangerous hardening of stance, and is this then becoming Cold War 2.0?
Well, there is a hardening of stance because, with a Russian offensive due to take place in Ukraine, and Ukraine being armed with more sophisticated weapons and likely to have its own offensive, the conflict looks set to intensify over the next couple of months. But clearly, I think in diplomacy, we are used to patience and perseverance, and both are required at this stage, along with skill, to try to keep the focus on issues which are important. As Ambassador Soni said, there's quite some time till the summit. There'll be many other meetings, and hopefully by then we will be able to find a way to hammer out some consensus. So let's
very good advice, ma'am. I
despair.
hope that better sense prevails. Stay with me for a moment. I need to slip into a quick break here, because when you look at this hardening of stance on both sides, when you have the United States tell China, do not give military hardware to Russia, you have China telling the United States, do not give military hardware to Taiwan. What does this mean? Also, what's happening at the bilateral, the India-China bilateral between the foreign ministers of both these countries? What did India say? What does that mean? That story and lots more coming up. Stay with us.
India Today Conclave 2023, March 17th and 18th, New Delhi. Listen to Janvi Kapoor, Malaika Arora, Anita Sengupta, Abha Adams, Hajar Chena Ramani, Dr. Ruha Shadab. The India Moment.
It's a very common question that I've seen people deliberating. So if you'd have the answer to that, why should one choose Ather?
Why should one choose Ather? Because that's the best, that's the safest electric scooter right now on the market. It's the most stable electric scooter right now on the market. It's the one that's been built and researched for the longest period, almost 10 years. We started work on the scooter in 2014, actually early 2013, late 2013, and we're here. What you see here is basically an outcome of all of that.
How many more do you plan to sell? What's the market share that you're looking to capture?
So I think we have finally been able to scale up our production to about 35,000 units a month. That's on capacity. Our supply chain still is scaling up. It's now doing about 16,000 units a month. And I'm confident of crossing about 25,000 units, almost 30,000 units a month by later this year, and fully utilizing this plant by either later this year or early next year. After that, we will be production constrained again, and which point we will start working on a new plant. So about in a year's time, we should utilize our full capacity.
So how does this translate into revenue and profitability?
By revenue, I think Ather will be outside of China. Ather will be the number one or number two electric two-wheeler manufacturer in a few months globally. And by profitability, I think we are still some time away from being profitable, while losses continue to narrow. But given the pace at which market is increasing, we have to continue investing in new capacity, we have to continue investing in new charging infrastructure, new product enhancements. So I think cash profitability is still, I'd say, not this year. It's still a year to work.
Worli painting, a mural art form of Maharashtra, gives Aurangabad a facelift ahead of a G20 inception meeting. A group of 120 women painted non-stop for 6 hours to complete the artwork.
वुमेन एम्पावरमेंट शो करते हुए हम लोग ये जो प्रोजेक्ट कर रहे हैं वारली का, वर्ल्ड्स लार्जेस्ट वारली पेंटिंग जो है, जिसका रिकॉर्ड पहले पूना में था, उसको पूना के रिकॉर्ड को ब्रेक करते हुए, उसको चैलेंज करते हुए आज हम सब लड़कियां, वी आर 120 लेडीज हियर वर्किंग फॉर दिस वारली पेंटिंग टुडे. और इसका सबसे बड़ा क्रेडिट जो जाता है, जो मेरी बहुत अच्छी फ्रेंड है, वो है नंदिनी घोडेले. ये कॉन्सेप्ट जो जहाँ से आई है, वो लड़की ने सर 21 इयर्स की लड़की है. दिस इज रियली अ मोटिवेशन टू ऑल द गर्ल्स ओवर हियर.
The work spread over 3,200 square feet will enter the India Book of Records 2024 in the social and cultural category. This painting breaks the earlier record of 3,050 square feet set by artists in Pune. I congratulate all the dignitaries, those who have taken efforts, जिन्होंने इस इवेंट को एक सक्सेसफुल बनाया है, and congratulations to Aurangabad Municipal Corporation. There were no professional artists among the 120 participants. They came from different professions like medicine, accountancy, and engineering. Bureau Report, India Today.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
And a major development on the sidelines of the G20 foreign ministers meet. India, of course, is holding this biggest ever G20 foreign ministers meet. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar held a bilateral meeting with his Chinese counterpart, the first since Xi Jinping came back for a third term. Now, this bilateral meeting comes amidst an ongoing border tension between India and China at the line of actual control. And soon after this meeting, the External Affairs Minister talked about India reiterating its stance moving forward depended on peace and tranquility along the borders. Let's listen in to the External Affairs Minister.
I met Minister Chingang on the sidelines of the conference this afternoon. It's our first meeting after he took over as foreign minister. So we spent, I don't know, maybe about 45 minutes talking to each other. There are real problems in that relationship that need to be looked at, that need to be discussed very openly and candidly between us. That's what we sought to do today. We also had a brief discussion on what was happening in the G20 framework, but the thrust of the meeting was really on our bilateral relationship and the challenges in the bilateral relationship, especially that of peace and tranquility in the border areas.
Ambassador Dayal, how do you view this, the fact that the Chinese foreign minister came to India, of course, for the G20, but there was a bilateral, and India reiterated peace and tranquility at the borders, very essential. How would you view this?
Well, Gaurav, first of all, let me state that the India-China relationship is currently at its lowest point in 6 decades. Now, India and China have withdrawn troops from the 2 banks of the Pangong Lake, Gogra and Hot Springs. However, they have not been able to make progress in other crucial friction points, such as Depsang and Demchok. Now, the Chinese side has been saying that these border tensions should be put aside or put away in an appropriate place, while relations are taken forward in other areas, such as trade. On our part, India has emphasized that the only disengagement of the frontline troops on the LAC and the restoration of peace and tranquility is what India wants. And India emphasizes that this alone can lead to the normalization of bilateral relations. So there is a big difference in the positions taken by the 2 sides. And in that context, this meeting between our External Affairs Minister and the Chinese Foreign Minister assumed a lot of significance.
Okay. Ambassador Soni, the fact that China and Russia would want India to perhaps not be in the Western camp when it comes to Russia, Ukraine, at the same time there's border tension between India and China. Where does that leave us and where does that leave China?
Well, first of all, China and Russia, if they think that India can be weaned away so easily, it can't be done like that. We have certainly empathy for Russia, but with China, to expect us to do anything on that, they have to take some steps. They haven't really taken any steps. As my colleague just now mentioned, this is the lowest point of our relationship with China because there is nothing moving forward. In fact, there is a hardening of position by their side on the border issues. There are certain issues which they agree on and they renege, they go back on that. So as Russia is concerned, I don't think we could have done more than what we have done for Russia. They have been a very good friend for us for the last decades. So we have not abandoned them. At the same time, we have also conveyed to them that the way forward is not just to take the stance which they have taken, which is very hardened stance. They have to realize the world has moved on. They can't possibly be guided by what was happening in the past. So they have to show some consideration, some kind of step forward. They have not done so far. So
which they haven't done so far. And India, of course, continues to maintain, and so does China, of course, more than 50,000 troops at the line of actual control. But at the G20, Russia hit out at the Western countries. The Russia-Ukraine conflict remained the biggest elephant in the room at the G20 foreign ministers meet. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar held a meeting with Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister. He is one of the key aides of Russian President Vladimir Putin, considered virtually his right-hand man. Now, in his briefing, Sergei Lavrov not only appreciated India's role, he spoke highly of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's role in governance amidst this Russia-Ukraine war, but he hit out at the Western Bloc. Lavrov claimed it was the West, especially the United States and United Kingdom, who were trying to derail peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. Let's listen in.
Is the conflict impacting the global South? Of course it is. It's not something new. In fact, India has been saying this very strongly for pretty much close to a year, that this is affecting. In fact, today in my own session, I actually used the word saying for much of the global south, this is a make or break issue. That the costs of fuel, the cost of food, the cost of fertilizer, the availability of fertilizer, which means next year's food, these are all extremely pressing issues. And if you see some of the countries who were already struggling with debt, who were already impacted by the pandemic, for them, this conflict, the knock-on effects of this conflict coming on top of that has been really, damaging is a very, very mild word.
Today, when addressing the participants of the foreign minister meeting, President Modi, I think he presented balanced and responsible position of the country as the president of the G20. And in this address, he was not just speaking about some isolated individual situations, because the West is trying to divide the geopolitical picture into individual episodes. But in the address by Mr. Modi, he gave the assessment of the situation across the globe.
Оценка общего состояния дел в мире.
So India continues to negotiate. India continues to be the voice of the global south, the developing countries. And let's see if the Western Bloc listens to developing countries on this very crucial aspect, whether it's energy security or food security or sustainable development goals. And we'll be tracking that story very closely. Ambassador Meera Shankar, Ambassador Prabhu Dayal and Ambassador V.B. Soni for joining me here on this India Today special. Many thanks. A quick break. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is at the Raisina dialogue with Giorgia Meloni, the Prime Minister of Italy. This is the 75th year of India-Italy relations. But before that, coming up next, it's the big BJP win in Tripura and in Nagaland with alliance partners. These are images that you see of celebrations that are taking place in Tripura. But what about Meghalaya? Will there be a consensus? Will there be a coalition government once again with the NPP, with Conrad Sangma in Meghalaya? That story and lots more coming up. Stay with us.
Hola from yet another day at the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. Now, quick weather update. It's gotten much better outside. Sunny days are here in Barcelona. Less chilly, but it's the opposite story inside the Fira here at the Mobile World Congress. A lot of the launches have already happened. So that excitement, that anxiety, that trepidation has sort of fizzled out here at MWC Barcelona. When I speak to some of the CEOs and some of the C-suite executives exclusively for Business Today, we found out that a lot of that action has been happening behind closed doors. And some of the biggest customer engagements, partnerships are all taking place here at MWC because this is a big one. It's back after a long hiatus with such scale and at such a scale here in Barcelona. There's nearly 80,000 attendees, several exhibitors, of course a lot of them coming from China and the US as well. So this has become a true meeting ground for all tech enthusiasts and for the tech business at large. Now, in terms of things that we've seen over here, we've seen a bunch of phones and a bunch of launches like the Xiaomi 13 Pro, the Realme fast charging device, a OnePlus concept device, which I'm not quite sure will ever be a reality, but let's see about that. But the real showstopper over the course of the past few days has been at this stall, the Motorola stall. It's the Moto Riser concept. Absolutely mind-blowing tech. Imagine rollable tech in the palm of your hand. We can only hope that this becomes a reality very soon. We showed it to you exclusively on the first day and of course on our social media channels. But now we have an exclusive hands-on with the device. Have a look. The Motorola Riser concept that we hope will soon be a reality. What makes this phone really special is the minute you give it a double tap on that side, the rollable display now expands to this. Tap it twice again. And like that, just like magic, it's back to this traditional form. Now, there's a lot of use cases for something like this. I think rollable displays
are something which will work in the future. We've seen how foldables are really hotting up as a space, even in India and on tech today. We've seen the Oppo Find N2 Flip and the Samsung Galaxy Flip 4, the Fold. There's all sorts of devices here at the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, but we have this concept phone in the flesh on tech today. There's also a few other things that this phone can do. For instance, if you flick it twice like this, and now it's just, well, the rear camera, and I want to suddenly start using the front camera. There you go, I flick it again, and here's the front camera. And if you notice, when I did that, this display was untouched. It rolled further out there, the camera is revealed, as is the earpiece. You flick it back again, and there you go.
So I think in general there is obviously much more digital advertising happening, and the platforms are becoming more active and influencers are becoming more active, because we do feel that this is going to shape advertising in the future in a very, very big way. So more than I would say, has it gone up or down, because the guidelines are very recent. I think what we can say is that just at an anecdotal basis, we are seeing a lot more influencers who are compliant. We are seeing the hashtags being used. We are seeing the paid partnership tags being used. So I think that's a great step. And we are definitely seeing more platforms also bringing in disclosure labels, so that there is a native way to kind of disclose your material connection. So I think influencers are taking this whole thing, I feel, in a really good way, in a very positive way, and using disclosure, not with any kind of pressure, but I think as a voluntary choice that they are making. And I think that is really, really great news.
Absolutely. Like you said, there's been a rise in digital ads. Digital influencing marketing is the newest thing on the block. Where do you think this will go? Will it take over the revenue, the ad spends that we saw for TV ads? Will digital advertising be the biggest advertising field in ad?
If you see the growth that it has, I mean, it's already kind of inching towards television growth. So television still remains the largest, but digital is now a close second. And the rate of growth of digital is definitely higher. So I think, I think all media will continue to grow. So it's not as if, that you will actually see a decline in any particular medium. But yes, I think just in terms of percentage split, I feel that digital is likely to take over television in the next few years.
Filmmakers in the Indian film industry have often resorted to remaking successful films in the hopes that audiences would flock to a theatre. However, recent releases such as Kartik Aarya's Shehzada and Akshay Kumar and Imran Hashmi's starrer Selfie, which are also remakes of Allu Arjun's Ala Vaikunthapuramalu and Prithviraj Sukumaran starrer Driving License, have turned out to be box office duds. And cinephiles will be hoping that this could bring an end to the remake culture in Bollywood. The box office success of several big-budget films in Bollywood has been on shaky ground, with audiences rejecting remakes of South and Hollywood movies lately, and the Hindi film industry losing its grip on the audience due to the lack of originality. Let's take a look at some disastrous Hindi remakes which tanked. Hrithik Roshan and Saif Ali Khan collaborated with filmmaker duo Pushkar Gayatri for the Bollywood version of the Tamil hit Vikram Vedha. The film, which was made on a massive budget of 175 crore rupees, approximately grossed over 78 crores at the box office. Whereas R. Madhavan and Vijay Sethupathi starrers' lifetime collection was over 58 crore rupees at the box office, but was made on a relatively lower budget.
कुछ लोग विश्वास नहीं करते, पर जिंदगी में चमत्कार होते हैं जी.
Amir Khan and Kareena Kapoor Khan starrer Lal Singh Chaddha crashed out of theatres with a lifetime collection of 58 crores approximately in its domestic run. The film was a remake of Tom Hanks's hit film Forrest Gump.
जब हमारे पिताजी कैंसर के लास्ट स्टेज पे थे और मेडिकल वाला पैसे के बिना दवाई देने को तैयार नहीं था, हमने हथियार उठा लिया.
The Akshay Kumar and Kriti Sanon starrer, which is a remake of the 2014 Tamil film Jigar Thanda, turned out to be a box office dud and ended up collecting over 72 crores. Reportedly, the film was made on a budget of 180 crore rupees and was panned by critics.
मुझे भाई नहीं, गॉडफादर बोलते हैं.
मुझे 500 रुपए चाहिए विद्या.
तो जितना मांग रहा है उतनी कमाई है नहीं.
मुझे पता है तुम्हारे अकाउंट में.
After Kabir Singh, Shahid Kapoor picked yet another Telugu film for a remake. Shahid Kapoor's sports drama Jersey ended up doing poor business at the box office with a lifetime collection of 19 crore rupees, approximately, despite good reviews. The Telugu version, meanwhile, collected over 50 crores.
हम मिडिल क्लास फैमिली की लाइफ ही प्रॉब्लम है, लेकिन जब प्रॉब्लम फैमिली पे आती है ना, तो एक निकम्मा ही काम आता है.
From poor reviews to a low box office collection of approximately 1.5 crores, the Shilpa Shetty, Abhimanyu Dasani and Shirley Sethia starrer washed out from theatres within a few days of its release.
जीत तो मैं तभी गया था जब मैंने सोच लिया.
The film was a remake of Nani's Telugu flick Middle Class Abbai, which had collected over 69 crores. With Snigdha Shweta, Entertainment Bureau, India Today.
₹10 पेट्रोल दर पे उतना.
Tragedies can either break you or make you. And this story from Naxal hit Gadchiroli will inspire you in many ways. Bharati Bogami was just 17 when her father, the Sarpanch of Lahiri village, was shot dead by Naxals in 2002. A brain tumor survivor, she faced several financial problems and yet continued her struggle to become a doctor. She now serves in the same area where her father was killed.
मैं सोच रही थी अब तो पापा चले गए, आज ये सब होने के बाद अगर यही मेरा फ्यूचर, अगर मैं पेपर ना दूं तो आगे कैसे बढ़ूं. मेरे पापा की एक ख्वाहिश थी कि मुझे बचपन से मुझे बोलते थे नर्स, बोलते थे डॉक्टर, बोलते थे, ऐसे मुझे अच्छा लगता था. पढ़ाई पूरी होने के बाद मैंने सोच लिया या तो सब सिटी में रहकर सब लोगों को तो डॉक्टर है, लेकिन मेरे गाँव को मेरे लोगों की बहुत ज़रूरत है. मेरे दिल में ऐसे कुछ तो भी चुभन जैसी लग रही थी कि अपने गाँव जाके मैं सेवा दूँ. इसीलिए फिर मैं रिटर्न आ गई.
Bogami found a life and work partner in Satish, who moved from Beed to the tribal area only to support her dream of serving her village.
मेरी जो बीवी है उसने मुझे मोटिवेट किया कि उन्होंने मुझे ये बताया कि डॉक्टर प्रकाश आमटे, डॉक्टर मंदाकिनी आमटे, डॉक्टर दिगांत.
You are watching India Today.
Saffron flag rises again in Northeast. BJP and its allies retain Tripura and Nagaland. Conrad Sangma and BJP to join hands. Celebration erupts in BJP. Prime Minister Modi to give victory speech. Our top focus at 7 p.m. prime. Our top focus at 7 p.m.
Good evening, viewers. What a day it's been. Two big headlines coming in at the day at the hustings. Well, with all that had gone down, with all the kind of speculation that was made, finally, BJP has retained Tripura emphatically at that. Right now, with what we're getting to understand, 32 seats is what the numbers have firmed up on, and the BJP is home with its ally IPFT, which is on just one seat that the IPFT has won. So the BJP is practically done on its own. On the other hand, the other big headline that's emerging, and that is Conrad Sangma, 25 seats. Who would have expected the NPP, who decided to go alone in Meghalaya, has delivered an emphatic win, just 5 short of the magic figure, which is 30th. Already Conrad Sangma has asked for the help of the Bharatiya Janata Party, which is, he's called up Amit Shah, asking him his support, which is the BJP support. The BJP right now stands at 3 seats, which have been confirmed, one that they're still leading on. So with all that went down, which was an acrimonious campaign, with the, with even the Prime Minister's helicopter not landing in Meghalaya. On the other hand, the BJP going all out to attack the NPP, and Conrad Sangma calling him a dynast, calling him corrupt. All that is water under the bridge, and old friends turned foe are now friends again in terms when it comes down to politics. So the BJP will form government in Tripura, in governance in both Nagaland and Meghalaya. We're going to get you the latest. First up, the headlines. BJP and ally IPFT set to form government in Tripura. BJP leads in 34 seats, Left and Congress lead in 14, and Tipra Mota lead in 11. BJP NDPP near 2/3 majority in Nagaland. BJP set to form government with Conrad Sangma, NPP in Meghalaya. India leads the global south at G20, says Ukraine war a make or break issue. Russia slams West hypocrisy. External Affairs Minister Jaishankar and Chinese counterpart hold talks on LAC peace. Top court orders SEBI probe on manipulations of stock prices in Adani Hindenburg case, as report to expert panel within 2 months. Adani welcomes move, says truth will prevail. And massive news coming in from the top court on appointments of Election Commission chief, says the Chief Election Commission must be appointed like the CBI chief. The panel needs to be transparent of Prime Minister, Leader of Opposition and the Chief Justice of India must appoint the CEC. Bulldozers roll into Prayagraj for the second straight day. Another house linked to Umesh Pal murder accused raised. The house belongs to gangster turned Neta Atiq Ahmed's aide. All right, let's take you directly right now to the visuals that are coming in from the BJP headquarters at Deen Dayal Upadhyay Marg. You have JP Nadda there interacting with the leaders there. It's celebratory moments for the BJP. Understandably, viewers, this is classic BJP playbook celebrations. The dust settles through the course of the day at the hustings. They've done exceedingly well in Tripura. They're going to form government in Tripura. Even with 3 seats in Meghalaya, they're going to be part of governance, and they've come to power with their alliance in Nagaland. So in all 3 states, if not forming the government, they're going to be part of the governance process. And celebrations now where the headquarters of BJP in the national capital are concerned. JP Nadda, party president, coming in a short while. You'll also see the Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, coming in as well. Piyush Goyal welcoming JP Nadda. Aishwarya, over to you. Can you take us through all the optics that are coming in from the BJP headquarters?
Well, Preeti, let me start by showing you the enthusiasm that the women have over here. We have been seeing how they all... Modi, Modi, Modi. The slogan is... Modi, 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 Modi. दिल में भी मोदी, साड़ी में भी मोदी. साड़ी भी आप यही पहन के आई और उस पे कमल बना हुआ है. कमल बना हुआ है. हाँ जी. optics it's on full show here. The lady is wearing yellow and there's also a lotus on the sari. So, you know, one can see the kind of enthusiasm that's really palpable here at the BJP headquarters. You know, the women are sitting on the entire stairs, Preeti, and all of them... Modi! 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 And आप लोग इंतजार कर रहे हैं प्राइम मिनिस्टर नरेंद्र? हाँ जी, उनको देख के ही जाएंगे।
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल, हर साल हर बार विजय होने पर हम यहाँ आते हैं, जश्न मनाते हैं और मोदी जी से जरूर मिलके जाते हैं।
It's not just the celebration of what's happened today, the result that has come out today. You know, in fact, the women are saying that they want to congratulate Prime Minister Narendra Modi for the big 2024 elections today itself. So the enthusiasm, Preeti, obviously is very palpable here. One can see, you know, the chants are growing louder by the minute, Preeti, and they are now enthusiastically waiting for Prime Minister Narendra Modi to reach the venue. Some of them even wearing the colours of the Bharatiya Janata Party, the yellow colour, and also showing the lotus that they are carrying with them.
What's the timeline? Because we're given to understand, Aishwarya, that the Prime Minister is stuck at the Raisina dialogue. He's only going to make his way to the BJP headquarters. It's been quite a day of heavy lifting by the Prime Minister himself. Possibly, if he does make a speech at the BJP headquarters, and we are expecting him to make one, I guess, it's going to be his third speech of the day.
Well, it should be around 8:30, you know, Preeti, that's what we are made to understand here at the moment. Once the Raisina dialogues are over, that's when Prime Minister will make his way. But, you know, I'll just show you around, Preeti, you know, the kind of enthusiasm that one sees. One of the very interesting things that I can show you here is, you know, this Lord Hanuman that, you know, one can see here, the lotus on the head, Prime Minister's photo on the other side, you know, the lotus here, Prime Minister on the lotus. So the color, you know, Preeti, in fact, let me show you because it's so close to Holi. You know, some people have started playing Holi here. So that's the kind of enthusiasm that's very palpable here at the BJP.
Aishwarya, when are we expecting the Prime Minister?
Preeti, some people have started playing Holi here. Preeti, we are expecting the Prime Minister by around 8 o'clock. That's what we are made to understand here at the BJP headquarters at around 8:15 is when the Prime Minister will be reaching the Bharatiya Janata Party headquarters. Preeti.
All right, well, it's a dream run where it's come for the BJP viewers. After Gujarat, it's a fabulous day at the hustings for the Bharatiya Janata Party. Primarily, you know, if you look at what has gone down in Tripura, viewers, 2013, 2% or a little even less than 2% vote share is what the Bharatiya Janata Party had. Dramatic rise to a 44%, taking away the entire vote base of the Congress Party. It was an acid test or trial by fire for the BJP. Many had called this an inorganic growth and questioned whether the BJP would be able to hold on to its vote base. And yes, it has. Of course, not maybe the 44 that it had the last time around in 2018, but a comfortable 32 and a 31 of its own accord. So the BJP, even without the IPFT, its ally in Tripura, has sailed home comfortably, passing the halfway mark. So very, very comfortable there. Where Meghalaya comes into question, the BJP, even with just 3 seats, viewers, you're giving you the numbers there. It's settling down now to about 3 seats. Even with just 3 seats, they had 2 seats in 2018. They've gone up one with just 3 seats. Is going to be part of the governance with Conrad Sangma, who stands at about 25 seats right now. So 25 plus 3, they're going to be still short about 4 or 3 when it comes down to the halfway mark. Halfway mark right now is 31. Actually, it will be 30 because only 59 seats went into election because one of the seats elections have been put on hold because there has been one of the candidates, sitting candidates, they passed away from the UDP. I want to cut across right now to Rahul Srivastav, who's joining us as we continue to beam you live visuals coming in from the Bharatiya Janata Party headquarters. Rahul, you know, I'm sure you've been watching the elections very closely. It's been a fabulous day at the hustings for the Bharatiya Janata Party. Comfortably home in Tripura, and even with 3 seats back into an alliance which was really acrimonious in the last campaign period of the last 1 month in Meghalaya.
Basically, if we look at the picture of these small northeast states, you see that what these results do to the BJP that the BJP cadres get a signal that it is still a winning machinery led by a set of leaders who they can rely on. Because if you see the picture of Northeast, if the BJP and Conrad Sangma's party do come together, eventually form the government, the BJP will have its fingers in power in all 8 Northeast states. That's not a small thing, because before 2014, the BJP was
Sangma has already spoken with Amit Shah, as confirmed by Himanta Biswa Sarma. They're coming together.
Yes, Nadda has already signaled, but I'm saying if and when they take oath, because in politics I always keep that little room for caution. So I say that when the government is formed, eventually BJP will have its fingers in 8 states, all of them in the Northeast. Compared to that, if we are looking at challengers, and that's what we have been discussing for the last few days, the CPM vote share has fallen tragically from 42% odd to 24% this time around. And that's a very, very serious loss. The number of seats should not be worrying the CPM. It is the loss of number of the amount of vote it has lost. The Congress party again has flopped. The flop of the Congress party means yet again in a region where it used to be a very dominant force, the Congress has not been able to make its mark. Then the expansion plans of Mamata Banerjee. Mamata Banerjee was hoping that after failing in Goa to create any kind of positive waves for the party, both in Meghalaya and in Tripura especially, where Meghalaya and Tripura especially, there's a large Bengali population. There was a sense of worry that the BJP may lose ground in case the TMC comes in. That's what initially what people were saying. But then there was also indication that the polarization of the tribal vote by the Motha eventually will lead to a polarization of the Bengali vote, and the BJP walked away with that vote. So the Trinamool Congress's expansion plans, though in small states in Northeast, even they have suffered a setback. So the BJP, the small losses, the Deputy Chief Minister in Tripura losing, some seats lost, not major ground won in Meghalaya despite contesting 60 or 59 odd seats. The fact remains that the BJP is still a winning force. I think that comparison actually creates positive news for Mr. Modi when he comes to deliver his victory speech at the BJP headquarters.
You're right there. It's fabulous politics in terms where the BJP comes into play, and these optics are not lost in anyone. It's the beginning of the year. It's come at the back of Gujarat, and another emphatic win in Tripura. You're already going to be in governance where Meghalaya and Nagaland are concerned. And this is just the beginning of what is a blockbuster election here, viewers. Rahul, I'm just going to take the opportunity to introduce our political guests also. I have Sanju Verma, National Spokesperson, Bharatiya Janata Party. I have Aishwarya Mahadev, Spokesperson, Congress, and Dr. Shantanu Sen, Rajya Sabha MP TMC. Dr. Shantanu said, I'd want to begin with you, and it's interesting because so much was said about the TMC trying to make a foray where Meghalaya and Tripura was concerned. If it was a trial by fire for the BJP in Tripura to hold on to what was called an inorganic growth and hold on to its vote bank, it was an acid test for you too. Where Meghalaya was concerned. If you're going to come down to the national stage and demand that you want to be at the forefront of the opposition unity that we keep talking about, you had to expand your footprint when it came down to the Northeast. You are right now sitting at just 5 seats where Meghalaya is concerned. You haven't even opened account in Tripura.
See, we are very much happy with the result of Meghalaya. During campaigning also, we have said that we are being bestowed upon by the blessings and supports of the people of Meghalaya at large, and we have said that we will be a deciding factor in formation of government. And if you go through the vote percentage, you will see we have got significant number of vote out there, and we have won 5 seats when BJP has won only 3 seats. So definitely Trinamool Congress has made a footprint over the soil of Meghalaya.
Mr. Sen, I just want to come in and maybe, one would suggest that there's a bit of disillusionment attached to all of this. And why I say that is, you were overnight the principal opposition when it came down to 14 of the Congress MLAs defecting to you. You have Mukul Sangma, who's lost on both his seats. His entire family has lost, sir. And he was your leader where Tripura was concerned. So wrong choices maybe. And who has this election been fought under the banner? Are we going to pin the blame on a Mukul Sangma, or is it going to be an Abhishek Banerjee?
Our leader Abhishek Banerjee has categorically made the concept of a party out there in Meghalaya. Now you see the policy of BJP. Few days back, Amit Shah and JP Nadda, they criticized the party which was their ally once upon a time as the most corrupt political party. And they criticized the chief ministers of Meghalaya as the most corrupt chief minister of the country. Now they have started saying that they are their younger brother. This is the basic policy of Bharatiya Janata Party. Just to grab power.
But Mr. Sen, that's irrelevant. You know, right now that's irrelevant. The conversation is not about the BJP. I'll take that question to Sanju Verma when her time comes. But the fact is, for the TMC, this was supposed to be a moment of going big on the national stage by expanding your footprint, not just in Meghalaya, but also in Tripura. But once again, I'll come right back to you. I want to take you through the visuals that are coming in at the BJP headquarters again. Live visuals, of course, these are old ones. We're going to try and play fresh visuals for you. But if we have Sanju Verma with us. Okay, we don't have Sanju Verma, but all right, let's cut across to Aishwarya Mahadev. Aishwarya, you know, the sad part is there is really nothing that the Congress can look at as a silver lining, but possibly just the bypolls in Maharashtra. And, you know, what does it come down to? One rally is what your leader, Rahul Gandhi, did in Meghalaya, one rally, while the Prime Minister himself did 3 rallies in just Tripura alone.
Good evening, Preeti. I think, yes, there are the bypoles that I think are slightly a silver lining. But before I answer your question, I think that the cadre on the ground, because we may have macro analysis of wins and losses, but especially in the Northeast, where the Congress over the years has seen defections, including in Meghalaya, where 12 of our 17 MLAs moved, and out of which only 5 have come to power now, become MLAs with the TMC. I think the fact is it is extremely hard to be a Congress worker today, especially in regions where you have no hope. But the fact that our cadre was still there, our cadre tried to fight, is something that is very appreciable. There have been times where political parties have 2 MPs. There are times where political parties...
Aishwarya Mahadev, you've abandoned your cadre. Many would suggest also the same. Did one of your leaders actually go to Tripura? No. Your top leadership that actually visited Tripura was Mr. Pawan Khera. You know, no insult to that, but where were your top brass? Nowhere to be seen.
You know, Preeti, to sit and quantify people at top brass and not is something very difficult to do here. And you saw Mr. Ajay Kumar there. You saw our EICC secretaries constantly there and working consistently. And I think whether you look at Mr. Rahul Gandhi's meetings or not, it was also Mr. Mallikarjun Kharge there. The Congress president has travelled. You've seen other leaders also move forth. I think that for us, again, understood, a defeat is a defeat. There are political equations in play where you're fighting each other 2 days previously and now you're all best friends. But I believe that the Congress will still continue to work in the places that we do have public representatives who have won in these elections. They will continue to work and our time will come. I have hope in that, and hope springs eternal, especially now for us.
You know, it's just, it is a little amazing, you know, Aishwarya, what I was telling the TMC, if there is a bit of disillusionment right now which comes in for the TMC, then it's the same thing with you as well. You know, the sheer fact, 2018 you fall to 2% from 44% in 2013, and then in 2019 in the Lok Sabha you go up to 19% under Pradyut Dev Burman, and you let him go. You let him go. You know, it's bizarre, and the fact is, the writing's on the wall, but the Congress seems to understand that. But I want to still now cut across, I want to bring in Sanju Verma. I believe we finally have her. Sanju, congratulations. Emphatic win when it comes down to Tripura. Quite attuned to what our exit polls were. You didn't quite agree. The Tripura Vota has bang on come to the same point of what our exit polls predicted. But having said that, it's a good day at the hustings for the Bharatiya Janata Party. You've done phenomenally well in Tripura, held on to your vote base. In Meghalaya, even with 3 seats, you're going to be part of governance. Similarly, in Nagaland as well.
You know, Preeti, thank you so much. And congratulations to, you know, your team for getting the exit polls bang on target. You know, I have to say this, I'm not going to today bicker about XYZ because to be very honest, Congress has ceased to be a party that matters in any electoral equation. Point number one. Point number two, I think more than anything else, the Northeast election results today categorically, reflect the fact that the Modi magic works and how. Point number three, Prime Minister Modi in the last 8.5, 9 odd years has visited Northeast more than all the Prime Ministers put together in post-independent India in the last 70 or 75 odd years. Point number four, when you look at the Northeast, you can't look at just Assam or Meghalaya or Nagaland in isolation. You have to look at Northeast as a block. And I'm sure Rahul Srivastava, your colleague, who knows more about politics than so many of us, he will agree that be it the NLFP agreement with Tripura and Mizoram in August 2019, be it the Brew Accord in January 2020, be it the Bodo Peace Accord in January 2020, be it the Karbi-Anglong Accord, be it the fact that more than 60% of the earlier areas which were categorized as disturbed areas are now out of the purview and ambit of the Armed Forces Special Powers Act. I think these are things that have connected with the overall cadre on ground. And look at Nagaland, Preeti. More than 75% of the population is Christian and more than 90% are tribal. And this is a stinging slap on the face of those who said, oh, BJP is a party which can only win elections in the Hindi heartland. Well, there you have Nagaland tells you a story that when the Prime Minister talks of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas, Sabka Prayas, this is not a jumla, this is not platitude, these are not mere slogans. This is something
but
Sanju
Verma, you made your point, it's emphatic. But when we come down to jumla and platitudes, we're going to talk about something else and how the politics played out in Meghalaya. But you made a point and it's relevant, and I want to bring in Rahul Srivastava on it. Rahul, the fact is, the fact that you have the Prime Minister, and I've actually gone through both figures. The Northeast, he's visited the Northeast cumulative of all the Prime Ministers that we've had ever in his term. On the other hand, let's look at Tripura alone. The Prime Ministers visited Tripura, then say the UPA did from 2004 to 2014. The Prime Minister has done it twice as over, even more than that. So somewhere down the line, it seems that, this look east approach of the BJP has worked, blurring possibly, the proverbial far east to the mainland divide.
Absolutely. I think that is one reason. If you see that the governments in the past did have support from players in the Northeast, when the Congress, of course, was there, the fact remains that it is the BJP has looked into Northeast as a very different kind of an electoral territory and also an administrative territory. The kind of infrastructure development which is on now in, say, an Arunachal Pradesh, even in Assam and other places, the BJP has somebody like Hemant Biswa Sarma managing those Northeast states for them. The Congress and others never had that kind of formula, like having an unit there in Assam to look after the Northeastern states. I think that involvement of the Prime Minister and the presence, you see, it's when somebody talks about Meghalaya, and Tripura and Nagaland, we are talking about tribes. We are talking about tribal vote, and we are talking about Christians. And the BJP, if you realize, is in an alliance with players in Nagaland, will be with NPP in Meghalaya, a party which is not supposed to have a very positive, strong footprint among the minorities in rest of the country. But still, with strategic alliances, the party is managing to convince the voters and the alliance partners.
Rahul, I'm going to just intervene just about, and the reason I'm cutting you short is, of course, not just the BJP, making a push there, but also the work of the RSS over the last few decades. Having said that, we're going to come right back into this conversation. Let's quickly dip in for a short while. You have Dr. Jaishankar speaking at the G20. Listen in.
I think a lot of us, certainly in India, we can see the lighthouse shine quite brightly. We believe that for all the challenges in the world, there is the leadership, there is a vision, there are solutions, and much of that today forms the agenda of the G20. So it's my honor today to propose a vote of thanks. I particularly thank Prime Minister Meloni for joining us this evening. I thank the Prime Minister, Narendra Modi ji, for keeping his word year after year of being here. And to all of you, I wish you a very, very productive conference over the next few days. Thank you very much.
I will now request all of you to remain seated as the Honorable Prime Minister and the President of the Council of Ministers leave this room. I will...
the Prime Minister
also,
now leaving Hyderabad House, where the Raisina dialogue is taking place. The keynote was delivered, of course, by the Italian Prime Minister, Ms. Giorgia Meloni. With these visuals, I'm going to slip into a quick break. We are back into a debate on the other side.
Thank you so much.
You are watching India Today.
India Today Conclave 2023, March 17th and 18th, New Delhi. Listen to S. Jaishankar, Shashi Tharoor, Justice U. Lalit, Justice Sharad Arvind Bobde, Sanjeev Goenka, Anil Agarwal. The India Moment.
Onions are proving to be a real tearjerker for farmers in Maharashtra. Prices have crashed from an average of 1,390 rupees per quintal last year to just 500 rupees this year. At the mandis in Nagpur and Nasik, the largest in the country when it comes to onion trade, farmers claim the current prices is not even enough to cover their input cost.
एक क्विंटल के हिसाब से 300 रुपये खर्चा आता है, मेरे हाथ में 400 रुपये पड़ेंगे सिर्फ। प्रॉफिट कुछ नहीं मिलेगा मेरे को। एकरी खर्च, 1 एकड़ का खर्चा 50,000 रुपये, ट्रैक्टर का लागत का, लागवड़ का और मजूर का, और 1 एकड़ को मेरा खर्चा भी नहीं छूटेगा। 30,000 रुपये एकरी आएगा, वो भी मेरी मजूरी भी नहीं आएंगी।
Many farmers are avoiding the drive to the mandis and instead choosing to destroy their crop by running tractor over them.
आपल्या जगाच्या पाठीवर भारत देश हा कृषीप्रधान देश आहे। मग कृषीप्रधान देशामध्ये शेतकऱ्यांना भिकाऱ्याची अवस्था असेल, मरायचं का वाचायचं हा प्रश्न आमच्या सर्व बांधवांना शेतकऱ्यांना झालेला आहे।
Why have the onion prices crashed? The sudden rise in temperatures from around the second week of Feb have forced farmers to sell more onions than they would have normally during this time. This is because the heat will damage their crop. While Maharashtra is the biggest producer of onions, the good monsoon meant more farmers in states like Karnataka, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh cultivated onion this time, leading to a glut in the market. Farmers also claim there are curbs on exports which are hurting them.
2 रुपयाचा चेक घेऊन काय करायचं साहेब? लोकांचं कर्ज आहे, शेतात इतका मोठा खर्च झालेला आहे। या खर्चात त्यांनी कसं काय त्यांचं सगळं उदरनिर्वाह करायचा? कुटुंब मोठा आहे, शेती कमी असल्यामुळं तर आमचं एकच म्हणणं आहे की या ठिकाणी शेतकऱ्यांना न्याय मिळावा।
1 किलो प्याज बनाने को, तैयार करने को किसानों को 15 से 18 रुपया खर्चा आता है, और प्याज अभी 2 रुपया 3 रुपया किलो बिक रहा है।
Farmers are demanding that the government set a floor price of 1,000 per quintal for procurement of onions. Meanwhile, NAFED has issued a statement that it would open procurement centers in Nasik district. Farmers have been asked to bring their good quality and dried stock to avail better rates at these centers. Bureau Report, India Today.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
रुख जिंदगी ने मोड़ लिया कैसा, हमने सोचा नहीं था कभी ऐसा, आता नहीं यकीन क्या से क्या हो गया, किस तरह मैं तुमसे बेवफा हो गया।
This short video has made Amarjeet Jaikar an overnight internet sensation.
मेरे सामने थी जो वो गली जिसमें रहती थी एक परी, उस पे मैं मर मिट गया।
Jaikar, who lives in Bhavwa village in Samastipur district, has been singing for 7 years. After the new video went viral, Lady Luck has smiled on him. Bollywood actor Sonu Sood is giving Jaikar a chance in his film Fateh. Jaikar is also exploring other options.
मैं अपना चेहरा देखा करता हूँ। कहते हैं कि एक बिहारी 100 पे भारी, तो एक चीज़ बहुत अच्छा सर ने लिखा था और मुझे ये नहीं पता था, मैं आपको कसम से बताऊं कि वायरल हो जाए मेरा वीडियो, ऐसा मेरा कुछ सोच नहीं था। बस ऐसा था कि फेसबुक जो होता है ना कुछ अर्निंग देता है, तो मुझे उसके बारे में पता चला, तो मैंने सोचा कि हाँ मैं इससे मैं वो करके अपना कुछ अच्छा कर पाऊँगा, तो बस करने लगा, वीडियो अपलोड करने। नेशनल लेवल में अभी मैंने राइजिंग स्टार, सारेगामापा, इंडियन आइडल में मेरा इस बार सेकेंड राउंड तक मेरा हुआ था, उसके बाद फिर मैं चला आया घर। आने वाला पल जाने वाला है, हो सके तो इसमें जिंदगी बिता दो, पल जो ये जाने वाला है।
Jaikar credits his teacher for his success.
जाने वाला है। हमारे विक्की भैया थे, तो मैंने इनको बोला भैया कि मैं भी गाता हूँ, कि आप मुझे सिखाइएगा। तो बोले नहीं नहीं नहीं, तुमसे कुछ नहीं होगा, ये सब जो करता है बड़ा घर का लड़का करता है, जो संगीतकार का बच्चा होता है वही करता है। बोले नहीं नहीं, हम पूरा इनको रो रो के बोले थे, आप शायद इनको याद होगा। फिर 2 दिन बाद ये मेरे पास आए, बोले कि कैसे बजाते, तो मैं सारेगामापा नहीं सब वो उल्टा गलत वलत बजा रहा था। तो फिर इन्होंने मुझे प्रारंभ जो होता है ना शुरुआती का सब इन्होंने मुझे बताया, फिर मैं अनेकों गुरु से सीखना स्टार्ट कर दिया। तो सबसे प्रथम गुरु हमारे विक्की भैया। जिए तो जिए कैसे हाय बिन आप।
Jaikar's father runs a hair salon in the village.
लगता नहीं दिल कहीं।
It was when his father bought him a mobile phone that he put it to good use, shooting videos of songs with his scenic village as the background, which have now become a rage. Jaikar aims to support his family with the earning from his singing career. Bureau Report, India Today.
There are some big names in the art world, like the ones from the progressive modern masters like Raza, Souza, Gaitonde, Hussain, etc. Some collect them as assets, some as vanity, some for the snob value, some for the emotional appeal. They appreciate well and fetch returns. Same with select contemporary artworks. Then there is a whole pool of emerging contemporary artists who cannot just be viewed from the lens of valuations. One such artist at the India Art Fair happened to be Vikrant Pisse. His art reiterates his commitment to the revolutionary spirit of Babasaheb Ambedkar. His work focuses on making powerful social commentary. The fabric of revolutionary times exuded. From his work, the call to action to uphold constitutional rights, to a social commentary on casteism with the Dalits in India,
to depicting the landmark Rohit Vermila suicide case, the artist is working on a series on the legacy of the Dalit Panther movement in India. His iconography is informed and deliberate in radicality. A force of change to reckon with, Bhise's work stands out at the India Art Fair. In New Delhi, Chaiti Narula for India Today.
You are watching India Today.
All right, viewers, let's take you directly right now to the BJP headquarters. Celebrations galore. The Prime Minister would be coming in any time now. Aishwarya, we're going to quickly cut across to you. Can you get us a feel of what we are to expect, especially with the Prime Minister coming in, and then we'll cut across to our guests. Aishwarya, can you hear me? All right, so these are visuals that are coming in.
I can hear you. There's a lot of noise, around me, but I'll start by showing you. Preeti, so I'll show you the visuals of the dancing that has started now. Everyone is anticipating Prime Minister Narendra Modi to be reaching the venue in about half an hour. That's what we are made to understand. By around 8:15 is when Prime Minister will be reaching. On one side is this dance taking place. On the other side, we'll show you the other dance that is taking place. So people eagerly now waiting and expressing, their happiness through dance. On one side, we have all the males who are indulging in this dance. On the other side are all the women who are chanting Prime Minister Narendra Modi's name. And not just chanting his name, but also, indulging in dance and, showing Preeti the kind of enthusiasm they have. All eyes now on Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Now the Prime Minister would be coming in, and my colleague Aishwarya is going to get you the very latest. But, it is a big win in Tripura for the Bharatiya Janata Party. In Nagaland, with their ally, they're going to form government. And in Meghalaya as well, a short while back, Himanta Biswa Sarma tweeted saying Conrad Sangma, with 25 seats, has called Amit Shah, the Home Minister, and asked him for support. The BJP stands at 3. And Sanju Verma, that's where I bring you in, and something what the TMC spokesperson as well as Aishwarya Mahadev pointed out. What an acrimonious battle that was. Conrad Sangma didn't let the Prime Minister's chopper land. Multiple rallies of the PM, of the Home Minister, calling Conrad Sangma a dynast, to get rid of dynastic politics, deeply corrupt, is what he's been called not once, number of times, that the NPP government has ruined Meghalaya. Why will the BJP want to be in alliance in a state with a party that they have said has ruined Meghalaya?
Preeti, I cannot be on your show and not expect a tough question coming my way. Be that as it may, if you see the real politic that Prime Minister Modi or Amit Shah or even JP Nadda engage in, when it comes down to the brass tacks, when push comes to shove, it is very important for us to ensure that acrimony is left behind, a fractious alliance, if indeed that has been the case in the past, is left behind, and look at the state of affairs as they stand today. And as things stand today, one thing which people should not forget is that the Northeast Development Alliance, NEDA, NEDA, the National People's Party, which is headed by Conrad Sangma, and the Northeast Democratic Alliance has been basically stitched together by the BJP. It is a loose coalition of various regional parties across the board from the 8 northeastern states, Assam, Mizoram, Manipur, Nagaland, what have you. So despite the acrimony between Conrad Sangma and perhaps the BJP top brass, Conrad Sangma never exited out of the NEDA, and neither was he asked to. So, and please don't forget that even in Nagaland, Conrad Sangma had said that while he knows his party, the NPP, will not come to power there, they don't have a fighting chance. They're likely to win 4 to 5 seats, and I think they've done reasonably well. They will support BJP from outside, if not from inside. So
but
the
Sanju
fact is
Verma,
that
as I go to our other guests, let me ask you this question again. All of that aside, does the BJP still think that the NPP is corrupt? Do you think Conrad Sangma is corrupt? I'm asking you, it's a question. Yes or no?
Preeti, let's be very honest. If you ask me about whether NCP is corrupt or not, then I have to just tell you that there's a video that is going viral on social media, and your colleague Rajdeep Sardesai has clearly said कि 2024 तो भूल जाओ. Whether it is Congress or whether it is any other alliance, it will be BJP which will come back to power. Opposition should start
Sanju,
thinking about
I'm sorry, okay, Sanju Verma, I know I'm putting you on the spot here because really, okay, it's a rock and a hard place. Listen, I understand, okay, I understand it's a tough question because, till 1 week ago, he was the most corrupt and he was the person who ruined Meghalaya.
I told you, real politics is different.
Okay.
Real politics is not done through Twitter.
The fact is you're unabashed, unapologetic about that, and maybe Aishwarya Mahadev.
I'm unapologetic. Preeti, I just want to say one thing. Preeti, can I just take 20 seconds, please?
Please, ma'am, 20 seconds. Yes,
go
ahead.
Thank you. Preeti, in this halabaloo, I don't want to lose sight of the fact that your audience needs to know one very important thing which your colleague Rahul Srivastava mentioned. I think the biggest reason for the thumping victory of the BJP, in most northeastern states is the fact that infrastructure development has been humongous. I was also amazed to read some data. In the last 8 years, 60 new airports have come up and 387 new routes have come up. And do you know, out of these 387 new routes, 100 routes
that's something we've spoken about at length. The push for the Northeast where this party is concerned and the number of visits, even I'm not talking about the Prime Minister, but a lot of cabinet ministers need to go every fortnight to the Northeast. So, that understood, that all aside. But the thumping win has come in numbers for Tripura, but not possibly numbers in Meghalaya and Nagaland. But the BJP has done what it takes to be in power because Aishwarya, the fact is ultimately it is a business of a political party to win elections and the BJP is doing what it takes.
It is a business of a political party to win elections irrespective of the cost of it. And Sanju Verma very conveniently tried to dodge it. But, there was this Assembly Dome collapse. There was the Muda scam. There was the COVID scam in Meghalaya, all of which were very succinctly bought out by the BJP, which I'm very sure now that, Conrad Sangma has decided he wants to work with them, that he will be washed clean, because the BJP is a washing machine for a lot of people's illegalities. And I think the cost today of what you are giving up or what you're ceding, our smaller regional parties do not understand what is happening.
Okay.
And it's fair and well and to see what development, but I believe if they have the people's mandate, it is about the promises that they have to keep. There's a lot you can say about flying visits. There's a lot you can say about the Prime Minister visiting. But if you're looking at what has happened in the 5 years, if you're looking at the promises, if you're looking at the changing chief ministers in one of these states and the performance, I think that the BJP and the regional parties have a lot more to do for the people.
Well, the fact is, Aishwarya, Ms. Mahadev, ultimately, the numbers have shown whether they need to do more or they don't need to do more. They are in power in the next 5 years. All right, these are the cavalcade, I would reckon, of the Prime Minister pulling in at the BJP headquarters. I want to cut across for a quick word to Rahul Srivastava. Rahul, as we are closing in, okay, that's the Home Minister Amit Shah who's coming in. And he's the one who's actually, along with Himanta Biswa Sarma, if I'm not wrong, is looking at all that's going on in the Northeast and the BJP's campaign there. But Rahul, as we're closing the show, I want to ask you the biggest takeaways. I would reckon for me, number one is how well the NPP's done. Conrad Sangma went solo and possibly will now broker an alliance on his term and not as a junior partner to the BJP. On the other hand, surprise, surprise, Rahul, Nagaland, the NCP has won 5 seats, more than the Congress.
Yes, Preeti. In Nagaland kind of a space, it is not necessary which the party is. It is everything depends on the candidate. So, candidate who is seeking for a national party or somebody, and national parties are looking for footprint, there is a kind of a nexus politics. So you have a JDU person in Rajasthan, LJP in Nagaland. All that does happen. It is largely basically suitability. The fact is that yes, the BJP will go back to Mr. Sangma. It happens in politics. The political tongues are extremely forked in nature. You had Congress and CPM together in Bengal, and they were fighting each other in Kerala. They can do that. Sometimes I have a suspicion that the bitterness between the NPP and the BJP had a degree of sweetness to it. I think that split and that attacking, to me, I don't know, I could be wrong. I think it was strategic. I think that alliance was not, it broke, but it was broken to occupy that opposition space. Remember, if the BJP was with the NPP, the entire opposition vote, anti and government vote would have gone to the opposition, benefiting the Trinamool Congress. Now, since the BJP was bitterly against Conrad Sangma, calling it all kind of things, the opposition to NPP vote got divided between the BJP and the Trinamool Congress. Sometimes I wonder whether I'm right or something like this never happened.
All right, Rahul, appreciate you joining us. Thank you, ladies, as well. Aishwarya Mahadev and Sanju Verma, who have joined us through the course of this bulletin. But we're going to train our eyes right now on all the action that's taking place at the BJP headquarters. Amit Shah walking in. You'd expect the Prime Minister in a very short while from now. This is classic playbook BJP celebration after every election that they have won. Huge celebration in the evening at the BJP headquarters. We're going to leave you with these visuals. We'll be right back, but it's a fabulous day at the hustings when it comes down for the BJP in Tripura. And of course, their game is on. They're in governance in Meghalaya and in Nagaland as well. A quick break to stay with us. On the other side, Rahul Kamal joins us.
You are watching India Today.
You have seen Iron Man Tony Stark wear it to reach war zones. You have seen Shah Rukh Khan and John Abraham wage a war in the sky wearing these. Jetpack suits are now going to be part of military drills and rescue operations. The Indian Army will soon adopt jetpack technology. These suits will be used for enhanced tactical mobility on line of actual control amid border tensions with China. The Indian Aerospace Defence News shared a demo on Twitter of its jetpack flying over a water body, buildings and fields. Soldiers will be able to fly 10 to 15 meters in the air by wearing this suit powered by a gas turbine engine. They can clock a speed of 50 km per hour. Jetpacks were the center of attraction at the Aero India 2023 held recently.
अगर टेक्नोलॉजी के बारे में बात करेंगे, ये पूरा टर्बोजेट इंजन से चलता है. इसका डीजल फ्यूल है. हमने डीजल इसलिए चूज किया कि डीजल का जो फ्लैश पॉइंट एंड फायर पॉइंट है वो नॉर्मल एविएशन फ्यूल से काफी आगे है.
Jetpacks are being tested by armed forces across the world. These videos from the UK highlight the features of the technology. In the first video, one can see how a soldier lands on the deck and drops a ladder over the side for the rest of the team to climb up on. In the second, the soldier demonstrates the ability to quickly zip back and forth between the ship and the raft. And in the third, 3 jet suit jockeys land on the deck of a ship successfully. Jet suits are soon going to change the way wars are fought. Bureau Report, India Today.
War is spectator sport. We are emperors of Rome.
Tom Hiddleston will reportedly reprise his role as the protagonist Jonathan Pine in the second season of Night Manager.
My name's Pine. I'm the night manager.
To bring the money to us, we give you back the boy.
You'll be in so deep, you'll worry that you'll never get out.
I got nothing to lose.
According to reports, the show will begin filming later this year in London and South America under the codename Steelworks.
My main man, my star.
I think you might be playing both sides.
We need Richard Roper. I'm going to get you out of here.
The series revolves around Pine, a former British soldier and night manager of a 5-star hotel in Cairo, who is hired by the head of a foreign office team to infiltrate Roper's inner circle.
Anyone can betray anyone.
Penned by Farr and directed by Susan Bayer, the first season also starred Olivia Colman, Tom Hollander, Elizabeth Debicki and David Harewood among
is concerned, but he's back now in his political avatar as the top campaigner of the BJP, and a lot that has gone down today in the northeast is credit to Narendra Modi. Multiple rallies in Tripura, Meghalaya, even Nagaland being received by JP Nadda there, all smiles understandably. Tripura was their acid test. They needed to retain their vote base to bunk the theory that this was an inorganic spurt or growth for the Bharatiya Janata Party in Tripura. They rose from 2 to 44% from 2013 to 2018, and they've retained it in terms of percentage. It will settle viewers close to 40% vote share in Tripura alone. And these are visuals we've seen one too many times, not too many moons ago. In December 10th was same visuals when BJP in the leadership of Narendra Modi had scripted an emphatic win, or a historic win, many would suggest, in Gujarat. Flower petals,